Going to call the Mashpee Conservation Commission Quarterly Update Meeting to order for Thursday, August 28, 2025. We're meeting in the Coit Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Broadcast live on local cable channels 8 and 1072. And also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. It is a hybrid remote meeting. All right. First item would be to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. We'll have a moment of silence. Great, thank you. All right, first item is public comment. That's for any issues not related to agenda items, and give each person 3 minutes per comment. Okay, please come up and state your name and address.
My name is Dave Lafreniere. I live in Falmouth.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to read from my prepared statement. Good evening. My name is David Lafreniere, and I'm representing the Cape Cod chapter of the New England Mountain Bike Association. I'm here this evening to comment on the Commission's July 24th discussion of our proposal to create a 12-foot by 12-foot viewing platform in the Mashpee River woodlands. Our organization has proposed to secure funding for the purchase of building materials, provide a building plan, transport the materials to the site, and to build a platform under our liability policy with no cost to the town. We selected the proposed site after extensive research based on its location above the top of the coastal bank, as determined in consultation with your conservation agent, which was Dan. Its spectacular views of the river, ease of access for transporting materials, and its proximity to an existing trail. It is our understanding that given our current proposal, the decision requiring the filing of an RDA permit application versus an NOI is at the discretion of the Commission. Mr. Costello summarized the state law on the topic by advising that this decision comes down to the judgment of each commissioner as to whether or not they feel that this activity will have an adverse effect on the resource area. We do not believe that this proposal will create any adverse effects. Quite the opposite, as we think that it will be a benefit to the community. While we applaud a conservative approach, when dealing with the welfare of our natural resources, we do request that you reconsider your initial opinion in light of the available information. The concern expressed by most commissioners in the July 24th discussion was access to the site. Our plan proposes accessing the site from Mashpee Neck Road along the 1,240-foot Spinnaker Trail and a couple hundred feet along the Long River Trail. That's about a quarter-mile total. This trail was previously a cart path to the river, but recent new growth has overtaken the trail. Conservation agent McManus stated in the same discussion that the town will be widening that trail to a minimum of 4 feet. While we are willing to assist in this effort, the trail widening seems to be a planned conservation project. After widening, there should be plenty of space for volunteers to transport materials by wheelbarrow, and the slope is net downhill. During a project that our organization completed 2 years ago in Barnstable, we transported building materials to construct a 185-foot boardwalk on trails a similar distance. Next, it was implied in the discussion that the added visitors to the Mashpee River woodlands could be an adverse effect in itself. We do not think that this is the case and continue to extol the benefits of getting our communities into publicly accessible open spaces. Regarding restoration of vegetation, we do not anticipate the removal of any significant amount. The trail widening will be a town project. No trees are slated to be removed in the proposed deck location. The footprint of the deck is only 12 foot by 12 foot, and we also suspect that the area under the downhill portion of the footprint will revegetate on its own. Also, the proposed location is very close to an existing trail and will not need any additional trail access. To summarize, the unfortunate truth is that our organization will be unable to move forward with this donation if an NOI is required. We estimate that filing an NOI, financing a full survey, as well as other required environmental studies could add months or even years to the project and cost in excess of an additional, of an additional $10,000 or more. That's just not in our budget. Tonight, we're not asking you to compromise on your principles that protect our natural resources. We are asking you to reconsider your decision to require an NOI after examining the evidence that is available and discussing this proposal with your conservation agents, who are your experts. We are open to modifications to the proposal regarding location, alternative financing of permitting and studies, etc. We firmly believe that this project would be a great asset to the community and hope to continue our collaboration with the town of Mashpee in the future. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, approval of the minutes from June 26. Vote on it will be myself, Sarah, Sandy, Paul, and Rich. So, any questions, changes?
I
Sandy?
have some.
Okay.
I couldn't locate the video for this particular meeting anywhere, but anyway.
Did you check YouTube?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
It
All right.
wouldn't come
I will
up.
check with that in the morning.
But, so I couldn't verify this, but under the board members present for that meeting, Alex Zola was listed, and she was, but it said she left at 9, yet she's on as the person who motioned for an adjournment, which was after 9. So I just wanted to verify
Okay.
which was correct on that. Under the NOI for 157 Daniels Island Road, under the commissioner concerns and discussions, 2 concerns were noted that I had in my notes that we suggested. One was regarding the stairs to the beach. We stated that if the project was approved with the stairs, they would need to be anchored and marked. And then we had concerns about erosion control. And under the project modifications and continuance, first bullet date should be July 24th, not July 4th. And under the NOI for 389 Monomoskoye Road, under motion conditions, third bullet, Regulation 25, Section C7 should replace Article 25, Section 7. And that was it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I got a few things. On the hearing for 3 Elliott Drive, is it? The flood zone is referred to as AD rather than AE. And there was one of these, and I don't have it on my screen, but it says that it was approved unanimously, but my vote is not listed. I think it could have even been Regulation 25, I don't know. Let me go back. I didn't write it down, but I was reading it this afternoon. No, it was on the election of the chair. It says the motion passed unanimously for Mr. Cook.
Yeah, right, that's right.
I'm not listed as voting for some reason. I think I did vote for you, Steve.
I think you did, yeah, I remember that. So-
Campaigned as well.
Yes, you did.
Just kidding. That's all I had.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. So, do you want to correct those minutes and reissue before we vote on them, or do we want to vote on with the changes noted?
It's up to you. I can do either way, so, yeah.
All right. I'm fine with that. So do we have a motion to accept the minutes with the changes as noted?
I will move to accept the minutes with the edits as noted.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes, too. Great. All right, getting into discussion. The first item is water quality. Any issues, any questions on water quality from commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to that next one. All right, so next item is septic upgrade, RDAs versus notice of intent filings. So I wanted to talk this through so we as a commission, we're all coordinated with the staff, and when an applicant comes in, they know exactly what they have to do, which filing is it for a septic upgrade. And then, that will streamline hearings through, and there's no misunderstanding between commissioners and the staff and the applicants, so just clear the air. So, one of the first items, we should get everybody's opinion, and we can vote on it and say, to Dan and Drew, okay, whenever an applicant comes in, this is where we're going to head in that direction, is we have septic upgrades within buffer zones to ponds, rivers, streams, things like that, and we got septic upgrades in flood zones. So there's a couple different types of scenarios here. So I'd like to get everybody's opinion and say which direction would everybody like to go in. So if you want to start, Sarah?
Sure.
Just go around the table.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I'd be glad to. I think, in an ideal world, if we could set criteria that would help us determine which is more appropriate, I think that would be helpful procedurally or, in terms of a regulatory framework. I don't know if we would need to, what the due process would be here, but the concerns that I have with the septic upgrades are when they are requesting, when they are, in that 75-foot buffer to a resource zone or in the flood zone, and then when they are closer to the groundwater than what Title V will allow. I would like to be able to work with the applicant to come up with an alternate solution and to get more information about why we're not looking at different locations on the lot, why we're not looking at a mounded septic. So I do think that it would be applicable to our regulatory framework in a different way, given criteria if we're looking, specifically on the impact to the resource area. And I also think that if it's a failed septic system, or worse, if it's a cesspool that has been there for a really long time, I think that bumps it to the top of the list, because, the point here is that, amongst other things, we're charged to protect the groundwater. So I'm trying to find an appropriate way to do that, and being consistent. So as you said, there's clarity among applicants, homeowners, engineers, representatives, conservation staff, and the commission, so everybody knows what to expect. But those are my thoughts. I would defer to the rest of the commission, especially the folks that have been here longer, on procedurally what that could look like. So,
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.
thank you.
Yeah. I think, as a commissioner, I differentiate between the resource area itself and the buffer zone. And I think that's a fairly straightforward concept to understand. And when you look at the state regulations, not our bylaws, but the state, 310 CMR, determination of applicability is clearly outlined in 310 CMR 1005 3B under number 1. When you get down to number 2 in that segment of the state regulations, it reads as follows. The Conservation Commission shall find that MGL Chapter 131, Section 40 applies to the land or a portion thereof if it is an area subject to protection under MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, as defined in 310 CMR 10.021. When you look at 10.021, land subject to coastal storm flowage is listed as an area subject to protection under the law. It's listed as letter D. Going back to 1005-3B, it further states the Conservation Commission shall find that MGL 13140 applies to the work or a portion thereof if it is an activity subject to regulation under 13140, as defined in 310 CMR 10.022. When you look at 10.022, there's no exception here. If you are inside a resource area, which is clearly defined in the state statute, and you're doing work, and we all know what the mantra is, dredge, fill, alter, you know how it all plays out. So I don't see the legal route to issue a negative determination of applicability when you're inside a resource area. If you're in a buffer zone, that's a whole different story. But if you're in that resource area, if it was work on a coastal bank or a salt marsh or land subject to coastal flow, it's a resource area. It's clearly defined in the state statute. I don't see it. The only exception is for public utilities. You know, when you start reading under 1002.2, they do refer to activities conducted to maintain, repair, or replace, but not substantially change or enlarge an existing and lawfully located structure or facility used in the service of the public. And it goes on to list them. And sewage is there, but it's got to be for the public, not for a private lot. So I've looked up and down 310 CMR, and I don't see the path to issue a negative determination when work is being done inside a resource area. It just isn't there.
Okay, so your thought is anything in a resource area or in the buffer zone?
Anything inside that resource area, if it's in it, that's an automatic NOI.
NOI,
If you're in a
okay.
buffer zone, it's debatable. You can start looking at that and say, well, how far into the buffer zone is it? Is part of it in the resource area? Is the whole thing in the buffer zone? Is it way up at the end of the buffer zone? And then commissioners can say, you know, like this gentleman just said here in his public comment, there's a lot of buffer zone work for that thing that they're talking about, and that's up to the commissioners to decide. If that project was in the resource area, there's no decision. It's right there in the state statute. So I don't see the issue that we can turn this around. I just don't see it.
Okay, so you're saying in a buffer zone, it's open for interpretation? Who's going to make that decision? Is it staff, or is it, because an applicant's going to need to know coming in to say he's going to do it's in a buffer zone. Is he out in between the 75 and 150? Is it 140 feet out? You
I
know?
think, in my opinion, the staff should counsel the applicant and say, the commissioners are the issuing authority. If you're in the buffer zone, they're going to decide. Some of them may decide yes, some of them may decide no, because they're going to make up their minds based on some type of an adverse effect that they see as an individual commissioner to that project in that buffer zone that's right next to the resource area. You know, if it's a hill going downhill like that and everything's going to flow in, people are going to be upset. So, you know, and again, we've heard this time and time and time again, every project is a case-by-case issue. There's no one-size-fits-all. But if you're in that resource area, it's automatic. I don't see any way around it. I really don't. Okay. And I had a lot of experience just before I came to Cape Cod, because these are state regulations, they apply inland. And every time somebody would come before us in, whether it's the city of Leominster or the town of Clinton, if they were in a resource area, game over. It's a positive. It has to be. It's a state law. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul. Neil?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Paul's done the homework there, and I'd have to agree with what he's saying.
Okay, great, thanks. Rich?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I've only been here a little over a year, so it's kind of what I've learned as far as RDAs and NOIs when these engineers come in and present, you know, a failed system. So I guess one, does an NOI lead to more of a cost to put the application in? And is it a significantly lengthier process to get in front of us for us to vote on a failed septic system. That, I don't know, I guess I defer to staff on that, and, I mean, I guess these RDAs, these failed systems, how long have we been doing that, as far as a commission? And then, I guess Sarah had talked about locations. I mean, the engineers come in, I know they're, I guess you wanna call them the experts, they design the system, I'm assuming they're putting that system there, because that's the only place in the lot where they can get it. So, you know, I see her point, but if they're designing the system, they're the experts, I kind of fall back to them. And then the other thing is, it's a failed system. We want to get that out of the ground as fast as we can. So I guess, does this lengthen the process of getting a failed system out of the ground?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to lengthen the process. I know it's going to be a little more expensive to do an NOI versus an RDA, but once they file the NOI in front of this commission, make a decision on, close an issue, or, if it's an RDA, it'd be negative or positive determination. So I think the timeline is the same. They just have a little more upfront work with the paperwork, based on my experience, with this type of paperwork, over my years in the industry and on this commission. So, yeah, that's I think it will cost more money for the applicant to do an NOI, but then we can also put conditions on it for landscaping and control some things that way. So there's positive and negatives to each, so hopefully that
But the cost
answers the
is
question.
the fee, right, and the notification to the abutters. Is that the delta for the cost?
In the plans.
In the plans. But somebody coming for a septic system has to have, I mean, you have to engage somebody that knows how to do septic work
You have to have
correctly,
the
right?
plan
So I think to me,
anyway.
it's, 6 one, half dozen the other. They're gonna have to get somebody that's a licensed person to be able to, put a septic in.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
Yeah, yeah,
I think
no.
they're the experts.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, no.
figuring out where it needs to
Yeah,
be, and
yeah.
they're installing it, so it's certainly not for me to say that you're doing it wrong, or however it might be. I mean, their license is on the line. I don't think they're gonna do something that's hanky and risk that. I guess they're coming in front of us, presenting a case, and, is it a case by case? It can be, but like I said, they're the experts, so I guess I defer to them.
I do think, though, Rich, I completely understand where you're coming from. I do think that they're working with a lot of other factors. So our priority is the resource area. That's it. Their priority is regulatory compliance, the layout of the whole lot for the applicant, all of the other pieces that need to fall into place. And so I think that we've had some really successful conversations with engineers who have designed something, and we've come in and said, could you redesign it this way for the benefit of the resource area? And it's made it a better project. So I don't think that we have the opportunity to do that with an RDA. But I don't think that our expertise or, concerns would supersede an engineer's concerns. But I do think that they're balancing a lot of priorities. And in some respects, ours is pretty straightforward. We're just looking at the resource area. So that's all I would say.
Shauna?
So I agree with Paul, and I spent a lot of time this week digging down, and I would cite CMR 10037, which says that, the following activities described are intended to include all activities subject to filing of a notice of intent. And Category 1, which on C is construction, repair, replacement, or upgrading of any of septic system or any part of such system. So I think if we have been looking at RDAs in a resource area, then we have been more lax than the state regulation requires. And it is always, my understanding of regulation is, it's okay to be more stringent than the parent regulation, but you can't be less stringent. And do think your point is absolutely spot on, Rich, that if it is a failed system, we have to drive the process as quickly as possible to be able to replace a failing system. But we do have the opportunity. Somebody will always come in and do it the easiest way and the cheapest way. And I think we do have to kick the tires on the projects. So I would vote, if I was voting member, I think the NOI is the appropriate level, and because it also does allow us to condition where an RDA doesn't.
Okay, thanks, Shauna. Sandy?
Yeah, I agree with everyone on that score. On the buffer zone bit, we said we would allow RDAs for those, but if we then come back with a negative determination, a positive determination, sorry, then they would have to turn around and do an NOI. So I think if we say NOI on resource area and buffer, then it's cleaner, it's faster for them.
Okay, great, thanks. Dan and Drew, get your comments on it.
Yeah, I think that, valid points raised for a notice of intent. And I agree with Sandy that, in the interest of maintaining consistency and not leaving it up a firm direction to an applicant as far as what they should file, and then, someone files an RDA for a septic in the buffer zone and the commission issues a positive and they have to, kick it up to a notice of intent, that is delaying the project. So if the commission votes in favor of NOI, I would recommend that it be across the board, no matter where a septic system is, because that is a factor that can certainly delay a project, particularly one with a failed system. If they come in with the wrong permit and you guys decide it's not adequate based on where it is in the buffer, and there's been given no direction prior to that, that's, I think that's an unnecessary delay. It can be easily handled by just saying notice of intent across the board.
So you're saying across the board in buffer zones and resource areas?
Yeah, because that way we can tell the applicant with absolute certainty, this is the type of permit you need to file.
Okay, great, thanks. Dan?
No, I echo that with the NOIs, whatever it's going to be, just make sure it is across the board, or just have a set decision on each one, whether it's the buffer zone or the resource area. I completely understand the resource area concerns when it is all that, and I do agree the regulation, when it's calling for it, your hands are tied, quite frankly. My concern, just when it comes to it, is that Cape Cod is in a green watershed, so when you do have a failed system, that becomes a concern of mine, because especially when it's on the line for the cost of, not the cost, but the sale of a house. There is going to be adverse impacts on cost when it comes to that for the sale of the house. Whether the sale gets put off, they have to find a new buyer, or whether the sale, they end up getting charged for that because they didn't meet a deadline. So there is increased cost when it comes to those certain things. But as I said, my concern comes to green watersheds, and we are in one. And when you have a failed system in the ground currently being used, that is a concern of mine. So I think, as you have said, and the commission has said, case by case, I think needs to be taken into account on some aspects as well, simply because some of these cases, if it's a leach field that's failed, if it's a D-box or whatever it is, it's actively in the environment, and I don't want to say with certainty these houses are not being used while they're filing for a permit. I would imagine they're being used in some sort of capacity, so I want to make sure that's known as well. It would, I don't want to say would have to be a case by case, but there might be a case by case where an RDA might be acceptable, and in that case, I would be recommending as an agent for an administrative review, just for the individual to either write a letter into the commission to ask or request, or have a discussion, something of that nature. So, but again, I agree across the board. I think it would just be best for any decision that goes forward, just so we can absolutely say, this is what it is, and we're not wasting any time getting the permitting pathway done.
Yeah, just to add on to that briefly, I agree with Dan, because sometimes we have had septic failures that are actively, failing and leaching into the groundwater, like a really active and adverse impact happening at that time. And we would obviously defer to the Board of Health for details. Emergency certification is also at your disposal for situations like that, where you can take immediate action because it's absolutely warranted in that type of failure scenario. And other thing for the commission to consider is that for the buffer zone 2 land subject to coastal storm flow, perhaps you may want to consider an RDA for those instances.
Drew, is there any other circumstances besides the buffer zones and resource areas that would pop up that we're not thinking of?
No, I don't think so. It's really just what Dan mentioned. If you have like a failure situation where, there's like, a busted pipe or something like that, you've got effluent, draining and leaking out into the groundwater actively, I think that's a situation you wanna have a crew go in and take care of as soon as possible and not even wait for a hearing. Because it's a situation that's, causing an immediate adverse impact and a health hazard. So in those situations, which, are pretty rare comparatively to your typical septic upgrade request and typical failure, in those situations, there's a couple of options. You can have staff handle it administratively and they can come back in retroactively for a permit. Or you can issue what's called an emergency certification, which covers scenarios that are actively causing damage to the environment. You cannot wait for a hearing. Again, those are rare, but they do happen, and it is something I think the commission should take into consideration with this deliberation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew.
But we do,
Sure.
use cases are always, help me. So the 2 whippoorwill that we did, so those 2 systems got inspected by the Board of Health, right? And got told they were failed systems. Does the Board of Health issue why the system has failed?
Yeah, this is,
Yeah.
We know why the system's failed.
Yes.
And I'm gonna ask just questions that I have no basis of knowledge because septic's not my area. And Drew, based on what the Board of Health provides, are we in a position to be able to make a determination of how much of a threat that failed system is to the resource area?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
So what have you said the 2 whippoorwill were, high, medium, and low, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being we get to it, 1 do we get to it, and 10 is if we don't get to it right now, death, destruction, the end of the known universe happens. How would have you rated those?
I would still rate them fairly high, just because a lot of them are predicated on separation to groundwater, like those 2 on Whippoorwill Circle. So the longer you allow that condition to exist, the more it could potentially impact water quality. Is it an immediate threat? No, I don't think it is, as compared to a busted pipe or something like that, which is most certainly an immediate threat. So no, I would put it, probably at a 6, maybe. But again, having said that, it's still very important to expedite the permitting process, because your final outcome is going to be better than what exists. So, I have no argument over the notice of intent, preference over an RDA, that's fine. But again, I would just think in terms of consistency, ease of, communicating with the public and consultants, that it be anywhere within wetlands jurisdiction, buffer zone or resource area. I just think that would really help to expedite these projects along, instead of leaving it up to a guessing game with the applicant if they come in with an RDA because they're in the 75 to 150, and then having the commission say we're going to issue a positive determination and require a notice. Just require a notice right off the bat. I just think it makes things much simpler, and the cost really isn't that much more. You're talking about $10 more in permit fees. The plans are still required, whether it's an RDA or a notice. They have to notify butters, that's a, minor cost increase, but manageable. I just think it's important to have consistency as far as anywhere in jurisdiction for septic upgrades.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Paul.
To follow up, Sean, on what you had to say, oftentimes, these so-called failed systems are failed because it's a property transfer. So if I'm going to buy your house,
I'm just taking.
and I
notes.
come in,
Just a consensus.
Board of Health is notified on a property transfer if it's a cesspool, or even if it's a standard Title V. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're functioning perfectly, because in Mashpee, we have a 1,000-foot setback. It's got to be an IA system. A cesspool, whether it's working or not, is an automatic failure no matter what. So we could possibly get jobs coming to us. There's nothing wrong with these systems. If it's a Title
Well, that
V
was
coming
kinda-
out
that
and an
was
IA
my,
going in.
like,
So there's no immediate rush, but we've never pushed to see, well, how bad is this? What does the Board of Health have to say? But I still say that if we're in that flood zone, that's a resource area, that's got to be an NOI. Buffer zone, something else, but I see, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think you could possibly get an applicant that may push the issue and say, but I'm in a buffer zone and the regulations from the state say differently, so I don't know. But I'm comfortable to do NOIs for all of them. I'm certainly not willing to say we shouldn't if it's in a resource area. The state's crystal clear.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with a lot of the comments. I think it's going to be a lot more straightforward for the applicants, for the commission, for the staff, and say, okay, buffer zones and resource areas just need an NOI. We can put conditions on it if conditions need it. We can discuss, like Sarah mentioned, some locations on the property. We can question the applicants that way. I don't think we should get involved with the engineering. That's not our role here. Our role is to review the plans as submitted, question them, and see if we can improve on it or make changes based on the bylaw or anything else that we see that's, with the plans that we, could be either wrong and they missed it, or like, last week, Mr. Boselli missed a few things on his plan. Maybe he was in a hurry to get it filed, whatever, he missed a few things on his plan, so that happens too. So I think if, as a consensus, it looks like everybody wants to do an NOI for buffer zones and resource area. Dan said we don't need a vote on it, just as long as it's a consensus, and we all agree that this is the path forward. I think we should start it. What's the next, have you started getting applications for September 18th? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, we have, we don't have any septic upgrade systems at this time on the for applications.
Okay. So can we say starting on September 18th, or do you want to go for the October 9th hearing?
We're going to be notifying people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's most definite. So for the 9th, or no, for the
When do you
October.
want, when do you want to say, okay, from this date, this filing deadline on?
We can go for September 18th, that's not a problem.
18th.
We'll notify them now, next Thursday is the deadline for that. I'm sorry, I think, yeah, next Thursday is the deadline for it, so.
Okay. Do you think some applicants are working on IDAs right now?
I couldn't tell you, I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, I've talked to a lot of applicants, not applicants, a lot of reps already about this, just because they wanted to have a direction.
Yeah.
So now they do, quite
Okay.
frankly, and we'll just inform them tomorrow.
Okay, so
and start
everybody's
next
good with
week.
September 18th?
Sure.
Saying
Yeah.
that, from that point on, we're moving forward in this direction?
Is there a place where this goes online for public viewing, or is it just
No,
direct
this
communication?
is just when anybody calls us, we get calls from the public, we get calls from reps daily, honestly, just to see like, what's the permitting pathway for this project, this project, this project. We get septic questions quite a bit, because some people just want to know the direction or, what the commission is looking for at the
Is it worth
time.
putting this online, or?
We could put
Yeah,
it
we
online.
can put it online. I think that's a good idea to broadcast this even more. We have a consultant email distribution list. We'll put it on that as well. So we'll do everything we can to get the word out to everybody, using all available measures, because I think that's warranted.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Everybody all set on that topic?
Steve, can we just, let's go in a little, so I think that's asked and answered, but around the engineering, and I think the separation, it seems to be the separation between the bottom of the system and the groundwater is going to be, you know, our bugaboo with these. So how do we challenge the design of a system appropriate? How do we just challenge the design of the system appropriately to make sure whoever's designing the system has been thoughtful about addressing that?
That's a good question. Just based on my experience, that each engineer is going to look at each property, they're going to do the perk test and see where the groundwater is. Now, I think some of it comes down to, which I've seen some of the engineers are saying, the person selling the house, they're trying to just do the lowest cost system.
Sure.
Like you had mentioned earlier, and just, get out of Dodge with it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm saying, well, if you're, going to be within, 3 feet or 4 feet of groundwater, well, maybe it does need a raised system with retaining walls on it. And that's with an NOI, we can put conditions on it, and we can go to the engineer and say, we believe you need to go back and change that design. Because we'll get more information from them. That's just my 2 cents on that. I don't know if does that answer your question?
There's also technology as well. So I couldn't start to tell you the different types of technology for IA septic systems out there. But they all have different specs, they all have different layouts, they all have different everything. So it might just come down to familiarizing oneself with technology on it.
I mean, it is like how fast it perks, that kind of stuff. It does seem to be, a very technical subject matter, kind of like thinking about the revertment that we did, last week. It's like, you have to be an engineer to know whether that revertment was right or wrong, right? So this kind of feels like the same thing, so, okay,
There's also a resource that we have available to us, MACC, they have a hotline for commissioners, so that might be something to call and see if they have any resources specifically pertaining to septics and really sandy soil, or ways that you can encourage alternative technologies, gray water systems, composting toilets.
I think one of the questions that came out of one of the hearings last week was, it was in a velocity flood zone. I think it just went down to Secaucet Island where, the plan didn't have the covers locked on or bolted down. And I think that came out, the commission requested that, and I think that was a positive thing out of that hearing, saying, okay, you're in a velocity flood zone. It's not going to say that you're going to get scour and, a cover is going to blow off in a storm event.
Right.
So those are some of the things that I think with the NOI, we can look at the details a little more, and then I think the engineers will pay more attention to it too. So, I don't know, that's my thought on that. Okay, so, all right. All set on that? Yep. Okay.
thank you.
All right, next item is application submittal requirements. So it seems like, I think some of you guys will agree with me, I think some of these applications are missing information when they come in. We're missing house plans, foundation plans, we're missing landscape plans, a lot of different things. So, I know there's a requirement, right? You guys have a whole list of requirements?
Regulation 3.
We have submittal requirements, we have a checklist for it. You mentioned house plans and things of that nature, they are not on there, simply because they're not in our regulations, it's just at the discretion of the commission. Right. So, things like that. So if the commission is wanting things added, I am ready to take a list. That's what it comes down to, so.
Yeah, we can amend the checklist to include, landscape plans, building, architect plans. I did send out emails to all consultants on our consultant distribution list. It doesn't include the consultants everywhere, obviously, but the ones we see the most often, to let them know, that building plans and architectural plans are required to be, the commission wants to see those types of plans for anything involving, raise, replace, new construction, home additions. Obviously, I don't think it's necessary to see those for things like vista pruning or beach nourishment, but certainly anything involving structure, you want to see those types of plans. So we can craft the checklists, amend them to reflect requirements based on the type of project that's being proposed, because you certainly want to make that specificity, so that applicants don't submit architectural plans for non-structural projects. So it has to be, it should be defined as, for these types of projects, this is the information that is required to be submitted at the time of filing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew. Yeah, because I think, the ones at 28 Wilson's Grove and 89 Bluff Ave, just to have those plans would be very helpful, because the distances between the houses on Wilson's Grove,
Sure.
One of the issues was channeling. It's like, geez, you can get stormwater pouring through there. If you look at the house plan and see, okay, we can understand what the impact is on the neighboring properties, we can be better informed and help out. So that's my thoughts
I did
there.
have a question on one of the suggestions made. It was related to requiring wildlife habitat evaluations on projects, and I just wanted to get some clarity from the commission if that's something you want across the board for all projects, or if it's specific to certain projects. And I don't recall the regulation number off the top of my head, but we do have a regulation under Chapter 172 that deals with thresholds of alteration of resource areas. So wetlands, land subject to coastal storm flow, all wetlands and or wetland resource areas, that triggers requirement of a wildlife habitat evaluation. So I don't know if the commission, is sticking to those thresholds that are already in place, or if you want wildlife habitat evaluations for every application that comes before you.
I could speak to that, Drew. I think the last one of those that was requested came from me. And I certainly wouldn't think that we would need it for every project. That would be a case by case. But looking at Regulation 20 and also thinking about Regulation 3 and the submission requirements on how additional expert testimony, for lack of a better word, or information to supplement applications to ensure that we're not inducing undue adverse impacts is where I was coming from. But I would say I don't think we need that added to the checklist necessarily. And I've seen the checklist, and it's long and it's outstanding. I think that in terms of what's on the agenda tonight, though, even in the last few weeks, we've seen applications coming in without DEP file numbers being issued or nitrogen calculations. We've seen incomplete plans. They're not labeled according to Regulation 3. They don't have a waiver request. A great example is the one on Ocean Bluffs Drive. They gave us like a lifetime supply of paper with the architectural plans, but it was a one-page narrative.
They didn't even stake the property.
Exactly.
Right,
And,
so-
and if we look at Regulation 3, that's a denial if the property's not staked. I mean, we have a policy that dictates we deny a project as presented if it doesn't meet certain criteria. And so the concern is just that these incomplete applications are coming in and starting the clock for that public hearing and going out to us as volunteers to review these items, and then the missing items start kind of trickling in. And it seems that there might be an expectation that we're available to give them adequate review outside of those filing timelines. And my observation, again, over the last few weeks is that a lot of these wind up being continuances. So we're spending an awful lot of time looking at these incomplete applications to come in and find out that they're continuing it because it's incomplete. And so I guess the question, on my end is if we can just require, as it states in application or Regulation 3, that these applications are complete before we put them on the agenda and start the clock. Is there a way to do that? Maybe now that there's a little more staff capacity, is it reevaluating NOI checklist? Because some of these things are foundational. Like without a DEP file number, I don't know why it's on the agenda.
So I can address the DEP file number. So I'm sure, Dan would agree with this, and other commissioners, I would hope, is that every time we don't receive a number, we advance that information to the commission. It has to get on, it gets put on an agenda just as a placeholder effectively. But there's never been an instance where you have proceeded with a hearing for a project that didn't have a DEP number. We've always advanced that information to you, because we have to honestly wait right up until the hearing time for that number to come in, and we have no way of knowing whether it's going to come in or not. So we put it on the agenda in the event that that number comes in. I don't know what other way to do it, but we have to give them until the 11th hour to see if that number comes in. So that's why they're on the agenda. And if it doesn't come in, you know, even at the end of the day, 4:30, we let the commission know that we don't have a DEP number. But it could come in between the end of the business day and the start of the meeting, so I'm not really sure what we can do about that.
And we can't wait to put them on the agenda until we have all the information? Is this not?
The problem,
No, because they have the right to receive a DEP number right up until the hearing.
Okay, so that's not one that.
Where is that, though? Where is that stated?
It's not stated anywhere, it's just allowed. If you have a DEP number before the hearing, the commission can proceed with the hearing.
and also part of the state law is the Wetlands Protection Act. Once an application is received, we have to hear it within 21 days.
Exactly.
We have the
Sure.
21-day waiver submittal form, so they sign that, we're able to not adhere to that 21 days for that, but if they don't submit that, we don't have control over that submittal form.
Well, I hear that. I do, in 172 Regulation 3, though, it says here that NOI applicants, applications may not be accepted if the application is not complete or accurate in project description, fees, Board of Appeals sign-offs, et
But they
cetera.
can submit the application prior to having a DEP number assigned.
Yes.
It's not a complete application.
The DEP number doesn't factor into whether it's
What about the other
complete or not.
pieces? What about the other
So,
pieces?
the other pieces do, but I'm saying for the DEP number, we have to wait from the state for that to be issued.
Okay,
Fair
fair enough.
And we always receive the application prior to that, because the state we get the application, the state gets the application pretty much the same day, and the state sends an email out saying we received it, and we send the public hearing notice out
And they
confirming that we
review it
received it.
prior to issuing that number, correct?
They
So
are
if there's any-
reviewing it
Yeah.
for submittal requirements, is what
Okay.
they're reviewing it for, yeah.
Okay.
So that's why you have to give them the time, run it down to the end.
Yes.
Well, I think, and that's why we wouldn't hear it unless the DEP file number's been issued, because if the state hasn't reviewed it and approved that all of the requirements are there, we're not ready. But fair enough, so that one's set aside, but some of these other elements, I mean, is this a conversation that we can entertain about if the pieces aren't there, we don't start the clock?
Oh, no, absolutely. Like Reg 3 with the staking, as well as the expert evaluations, if those are going to be requested by the commission, we can add that to the checklist as well, things like that. so.
Nitrogen calculations, I know we've seen
Nitrogen
quite a
calculations as
few
well.
waiver requests.
Yeah, what I'm going to do with that is we'll post it down as Reg 30, because that's under the Reg 30 nitrogen calculations. So we'll
Okay.
post that as they have to be submitted with it.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, and,
As far as architectural plans, how detailed are you looking to get? Like, if you have an architectural plan and you have the structure, elevations, are you looking for interior? Like, I don't, it doesn't, it's not our purview. I can do whatever they, I'm just saying whatever they want.
we just.
But if they're showing exterior elevations with, downspouts to wells and stuff like that, that's all we're really kind of looking for. We're not looking for interior designs.
No, it's more on the exteriors and show, okay, are there flood vents? Is it on pilings? That type of thing, more the foundation end of it in the flood
Sitting
zone.
on the water.
Right.
Because like the one I'll use 28 Wilson's Grove as an example. They're saying, no, we're going to have concrete walls with flood vents and things like that. So it's, 2 feet away from, 3 feet away from the neighboring property, which is not raised. So now all of a sudden now you're having a, concrete wall. The water's going to flood in there, so it doesn't make sense to have pilings on that property. Or the one we did down at the end of, 425 Monomoskoye,
Yes.
where it was in coastal A. They were just going to do concrete walls with flood vents. Well, they totally ignored the coastal A zone, amount of water that would flood in there. So those are the type of things that help us make a better decision. And that's just from my, background in the industry for years. To have that piece of information, I think is really helpful. Instead of just having, nothing, or just an outside elevation that doesn't give you all the details. So hopefully that answers the question. That's my thought on.
It
having the
does, I
details.
think, but I know the questions do get asked, and things that are in our purview and are not, and I don't want to pick them, but a meeting or hearing 2 weeks ago, the architectural plan showed 4 vehicles in a driveway, and I think Sarah had mentioned, why do you need 4 vehicles? I think we need to stick what's in our purview, as opposed to, I know questions asked like, why do you need so many bathrooms? It's not in our purview.
Yeah,
So I
correct.
think we need to stick to what is in our purview and kind of keep the meetings going.
Yeah, I agree with you on
Yeah,
that
I
end
mean,
of
there
it.
should be, we should have like an overarching goal that says with the right information submitted, we should be able to make a determination that night, one hearing, done, right? That's what
Ideal,
we're doing,
yes.
right? And,
Doesn't
it doesn't happen,
No.
but,
No, it
but
doesn't
what it
happen.
has, what it does is, we say we want to see landscape plans, we want to see architectural plans, right, and things like that. So just make them part of the requirement, so that we have a chance to be able to make a determination the night of the hearing, as opposed to push it off to the next hearing.
Well, most of the time, they're not complete.
Yeah, so.
They're not, right, and I do think that some of the applicants will try to conceal information that would be concerning to us. I think that we, a lot of times, are looking at a waiver request and having to adjudicate compelling need, and we're giving permits to people to double the size of all the houses in the floodplain. I mean, you know, so I understand in some ways how the number of cars on a schematic or the number of bathrooms in a house could be viewed as not within our purview. I also do think that it is concerning that existing structures are being torn down and built back up, double, sometimes triple the size. If we think about the cumulative impact, if we think about the impairment of the waterways, if we think about the development patterns that have happened, especially in the floodplain, in the resource areas, over the last 5-10 years, I think it's worth questioning, and I think it's worth incentivizing applicants for being creative and for really working within the regulatory boundaries that they have. You know, so some of these questions, why are you doubling the size of the house? Well, because we want to retire in it. Great. Well, what happens in 10 years when the house changes hands and now you can fit 3 times as many people in it?
But I guess that's not our purview. If they want to sell it,
I would disagree. I mean, we're here to protect the resource areas now and in the future. So we can't deny a project based on that, but I do think it's viable information, in particular when we're evaluating compelling need, which is within our purview to do if a waiver request has been submitted, which it often is required to be for a lot of the projects that we're seeing in resource areas. So I do think it's relevant information, and I think it's information that the public needs to know too.
I get your point, but
You know?
people's lives change, things happen.
Sure.
Whether they decide they're going to retire here in Cape and this is going to be their final resting place, it doesn't happen that way. So I can't look at something that might be, like you say, if someone doubles the size of a house, I can't look at it 10 years down the road, just like I think we had the applicant on Cricket Way. She's been here since, I think, 72.
I think her dad built that house or
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
And she wants to age in place.
sure.
And sure, things could happen. I mean, everybody's health changes and stuff like that, but I can't look at something that might be. I look at what's presented,
Sure,
and that's what I make my judgment on.
sure.
And if she has children and they decide to sell it, well, that's their decision.
Sure.
I think one of the things that we look at is, and Drew's mentioned this in the past, what's the cumulative effect on a project? Saying,
Sure.
okay, they're gonna double the size of the house, but right now, they have no buffer, no plantings, no mitigation. They have either Title V or a cesspool in there, and you say, okay, we're gonna get a IA system, we're gonna get all these plantings between the resource area and the house, and say, I think we gotta weigh each item, say, okay, yeah, the house is larger, but then look at all these positive things for the property and the neighborhood that we get in, and the protections for the resource area. So we just got to weigh each case when it comes to that when somebody's asking for a waiver. I know, it's kind of tough to see all these cottages that have been there for years go in larger houses, but I think that's the way, people want larger spaces for their families, and they're paying a lot of money to be on the water, so of course they're going to build a larger house. They're not going to stick to a small house.
You know, a lot of other waterfront communities put a lot more stringent restrictions on expanding developmental footprints, in particular in the floodplain. I don't think it would be outside of our purview to consider, you know, looking at what's happening in other places as people are recovering from, you know, climate disasters and taking a look at property damage, you know, and I don't, I'm, it's just one conservationist's opinion, but I do not always think that mitigation plantings offset the cumulative impact to a lot that we are tearing up and building back double the size of a house. I think we could tear up the lot and build back a house the same size and still ask for all that mitigation. I think it has to do with the cumulative impact. And we know where we live. We know what we're living in right now, which is the season of the summer people, where you cram as many people into a house as you can for a week because it's costing you an arm and a leg to do so. And a lot of these homes are, you know, this is being done so they can be sold and be sold for a lot of money. So I do think that we have a responsibility to exercise a little bit of discernment with that additional information in thinking about how we're issuing permit after permit after permit to just tear down livable homes and blow up a lot and build back something bigger. Because eventually we're going to run out of resource. We're going to run out of resource. And with the data that we're looking at, like already, we're looking at some pretty significant problems.
But Mashpee has
So-
been very thoughtful about that, you know, Sarah. So you look at the Pompanesett overlay, which talks about percentage of lot coverage and things like that. So this, again, and I think it is, you know, the needle we have to thread is the town has building regulations. And that's where somebody starts their journey on what kind of house they're gonna buy. And Mashpee has definitely, in different areas of the town, different requirements for what you can and can't build on a lot. So, you know, and you know, you could cram, you know, in 1,200 square feet, or you can cram as many people as you can put beds in that space, right? So the size of the house does not, smaller houses do not necessarily equate to less people,
Sure.
you know? You know, my husband jokes about this all the time. He grew up in 1,200 square feet in Woburn, Massachusetts, with one bedroom and 12 people in the house. So, you know, that's, I think, you know, we do have to you know, there is even controlling the size of the house. Your concern happens regardless of the size of the property.
Sure. But the scale does increase when there's more space.
It does, but
I'm
No.
not necessarily gonna go with that.
And you don't have to. I think,
Because
we don't have to.
There's the alternative view of people that retire and build their retirement homes aren't necessarily going to have tons of people all the time over the summer.
Sure.
And then, again, we don't know the impact either, is like, a lot of these houses in New Seabury are 3 months out of the year, and then they're vacant for 9 more months. I think,
Right.
we don't know that, they might come down holidays or whatever, but,
Right.
yeah, you might see 6, 7 cars in the driveway for the 3-month period, but after that, there's nobody in there.
Even if you get the 3 months. I'd
Yeah,
say
I
a lot
just-
of them could be 2 weeks.
And I guess I'll go back to Cricket Way, like, I think Mr. Borselli was talking about the square footage in the basement, how they obviously, that was gonna kinda go away, there was gonna be a crawl space, and they were going up. So, yeah, I guess you don't wanna call living space in the basement, but it was whatever, 1,600 and 1,600. So, yeah, 3,200 square feet, but now it's gonna be crawl space, first floor, second floor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure, the size, the living space is bigger, but the square footage is the same, I guess, when you wanna look at the foundation or the plans of it. I mean,
Sure.
I think
And
lot coverage is a very important thing for us to
Oh,
think about.
absolutely.
And I think the footprint, you know, the footprint of the existing, you know, buildings on the property now increasing dramatically, I'd be much more comfortable saying that's what we have to focus on, as opposed to you took and added a second floor, absent your concerns, Steve, like when you've got, these kind of shotgun houses where you would have to worry about, what's next to them and things like that.
Well, our new regulation 25 does focus on footprint.
does.
So
Yeah.
we've got that base
Yeah,
covered.
yeah, but that's,
Yeah.
that's the piece, how a building sits on a lawn is the majority of how that property will affect the resource area.
Okay, great, thanks. Paul, Neil, anything to add? No? Good.
Can we go back to wildlife just briefly? Some of our regulations really do focus on wildlife as a major concern. For example, Regulation 16 for coastal banks. I know we've asked for wildlife studies for jobs in that area. So I guess we'd have to look at the projects that are coming in to judge whether we want to say a wildlife study may be needed, whether you guys want to say in the office that a wildlife study may be needed. I think if, you're any proximity to the coastline, I think we might want to have that. Plovers and terns aren't going to care whether they're right on the beach or they're going to be up over that bank and in somebody's backyard, as far as we know. So I don't know where you draw the line with a wildlife study, but I oftentimes think that we as a commission are falling short in our responsibility, or if you want to call it purview, to protect wildlife. That's one of the main interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. So, I don't know. I didn't want to forget that piece that we discussed earlier, and I don't know how we resolve that. It sounded like we just went on to something else.
I think Regulation 20 has the
20 does
Has the
focus
boundaries?
on, right,
for each one of the resource areas.
yep. So we're going to use that as the guide for,
That's my understanding.
it is 20.
Regulation
I can
20.
pull it
I
up.
think it's Regulation 20.
20 is.
Yeah, it is Regulation 20. I
6.
guess, when I asked that question about wildlife habitat evaluation, if you're in a setting, let's say like Pompanesett Village, where you've just got nothing but houses and there's no real wooded areas, there's scattered trees, mostly landscaping and hardscaping, is that a situation where you want a wildlife habitat evaluation to be done? I agree with Paul 100% that, when you're getting into areas that have a lot of, native woods nearby, butting up against those types of habitats, certainly a habitat evaluation is warranted. But in settings that are like 100% urban, where you really don't have any semblance of habitat existing, is it really, what is a wildlife habitat evaluation going to reveal in that scenario, that setting?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, maybe, do you guys have that on the Regulation 3 checklist at all for wildlife habitat? I didn't
We
look at
don't,
it.
because
No,
it's,
it's on-
like
it's-
Paul
it's
said,
right
it's
there.
really contingent upon where a property is.
Okay.
And what the setting is. So I think that should be left as a discretionary case-by-case thing instead of being put on a checklist across the board for everything.
Yeah, I think we
We
decided
could
that.
use Regulation 20 as the barometer for requesting it, because they're all listed in Regulation
Right.
21A.
Yeah.
So maybe we should make that as part of the list. If somebody's going to be filing a project, have them look at Regulation 20, specifically Regulation 21A, and if it's in any one of those resource areas, and there's that many linear feet that are going to be disturbed, then they should be considering that.
Can I just ask first, the flood zone, because this one says see Regulation 25, and as seeing we just revised it.
Right.
So would the flood zone be, no, I don't want to say exempt, but would the flood zone be, in my mind, if it's within the buffer zone of a resource area as well? Because the flood zone is a resource area.
Right.
I understand that, but also I understand that it's mostly, as Drew said, urban. I would say more urban setting, and I don't know the exact number, but I would say it's over 75% built out already. So I don't know if it's flood zone only, I don't know if a habitat evaluation is going to assist us, but if it's something where it's in the flood zone, velocity zone, and next to a coastal dune, something like that, I think that might be a pathway.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at this, right, which says coastal blank, 20 linear feet or 500 square feet, there was we just looked at it not too long ago on Jeep Place. It was the house that came in that they were going to reshore up the foundation.
Yep, they were doing an IA septic and
Check
fixing the
every
foundation.
septic,
Yep.
right? So that property would have qualified for a wildlife study
Correct.
under this because it's got 20 linear feet of coastal blank.
It's got 20 linear feet, and in my mind, they were redoing the whole side, the water side essentially, so that would have been within 20 feet of the
Yeah.
bank itself, so yeah.
But it wasn't on the bank.
It was not on the bank.
This is alterations in the
Yeah,
resource
yeah,
area
this is,
proposed.
In the buffer zone of the bank.
Yeah.
yeah, that was the buffer zone. This list here is just resource areas.
Okay,
It's
sorry.
not including.
Okay, I gotcha.
It's not including buffer zone. I was saying with buffer zone, if you're in the flood zone and you're within 10 feet of a coastal bank or a coastal dune,
Yeah, okay.
it might,
I'm-
doing work within 10, that close, so.
Should be put up.
I would think too, if you have, like to Dan's comment on land subject to coastal soil flow, if you have a lot that's undeveloped in land subject to coastal soil flow and is proposing to be developed, I think that's certainly a valid case for a wildlife habitat evaluation study.
I agree.
The redevelopment, which is the vast majority of what you see, in these areas that are 99.9% built out, I would question the need for a wildlife habitat evaluation because what sort of habitat is actually there?
Yeah, should be on the checklist, Drew, and just say like a yes, no. So, okay, why
Yeah, we
look?
could just make reference to regulation 20.
I was gonna say, yeah.
20A,
Yeah.
just the specific regulations, just so to allow the applicants to be informed that depending on where you are, take a look at this regulation and pay attention to the thresholds.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Sounds good, okay.
So I'm just gonna, so is technically a application, the time frame for the application is when the application is complete?
Is, the time frame
Submitted.
starts when it's, with the day they drop it off, and yeah.
Would they drop off the completed application?
Yeah,
But I just wanna
Not
kind of.
complete.
Huh?
Not complete.
not complete. The day they submit the application, the 21-day clock starts. For instance,
Yes.
we had
Submittal
one,
date, it's not application completeness, it's
Yeah.
the day they physically drop it off or mail it to
Have
the
one
town
page.
hall.
yeah,
So
yeah.
why does it start if they don't drop off all the application components?
Because that's the statute under the Wetlands Protection Act, you have to accept an application the day it's dropped off within
Yeah.
21 days. Otherwise, they have to sign a waiver of that provision. And we can certainly have that done if upon review of the application, we see it's not complete.
So, having done some of my Mass Conservation Commission trainings, continuance, so we could accept the application, put it on an agenda, and we could continue it.
We can't continue. They have to
They have
request
to
a
request it.
continuance. If they request a determination, the commission will have to vote on the determination. Yeah.
Yeah, it's two options. And they don't have to, an applicant doesn't have to sign a waiver of that 21-day statute to place the hearing on the agenda. If they refuse to sign that, then there's really no choice but to have them go forward with putting it on agenda, because if we don't put it on agenda within 21 days, we lose authority under the bylaw. And I don't think anyone wants that.
No.
So it's better to just put it on an agenda in that scenario where they refuse to sign a 21-day submittal requirement, or 21-day statute to put it on an agenda, and you simply continue it. Because the alternative is that you lose jurisdiction if they don't sign that waiver.
Yeah.
And do we have the right, as a commission, if on the day that they come, if the application is not complete, to, continuances have to be done by the applicant, have to be asked for the
Yeah,
applicant?
we can also,
Yeah,
we can deny it. We
Deny
can
it
vote
for
to
lack of
deny it.
information.
yeah.
exactly.
I don't want to say deny, but you would essentially make a determination blind, because you wouldn't have all the information. But the applicant could say, I'm not
I'm just trying
requesting.
to figure out how we change behavior so that we have the greatest chance of being able to have
Right.
have it go on the agenda, get decided, as opposed to be continued.
It's the,
Because we have a little bit of a snowball
it's the
effect.
burden of proof. That's the whole Wetlands Protection Act. The burden of proof is on the applicant. So if the applicant feels that they want to go through with it, you say you don't have a Reg 20 evaluation, and the commission wants a Reg 20 evaluation for a full application, and they say, we're going forward with it anyway. We still pop them on the agenda. You'll still hear it, and
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah,
that
but
would be
then you've
that.
got
So-
grounds for it or not.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So.
that's just the way it works.
So it's just a fancy way of saying it's their decision on how they want to go about, but we're going to supply them with all the information that they need to submit, so.
Hopefully, if they have a checklist and they have to check it off, they'll actually have it in their application. I mean, I think,
Well, they've had
but,
the checklist.
with.
I was going to say, I
No, but
hope,
some of the things weren't on it, like the architectural plans, landscaping plans. So if we add those things, hopefully, it'll cut down on
That'll
some of
help,
it.
yes.
Right.
And for us, really adhering to those file submission deadlines, is that something that, like if something, like a revised plan is not in the Friday before the hearing, does it,
they could request a continuance or face a determination.
is there
That's-
any way
that's the
to
outcome.
streamline the data that's coming to us as volunteers so that we get it once? Or,
I wish there was.
Yeah.
It's really, sometimes people insist on filling out their own applications, and that can lead to a lot of deficiencies. We do as much as we can to try and ensure applications are fully complete and ready for an agenda, but to be honest, there's no such thing as complete control over that. That's just life.
all right, well, thank you for
Drew, is your
educating us.
opinion on 21 days, they really have to go on either the next agenda or the agenda after that?
Within
Make-
21 days, they have to be heard by the
Right.
state.
It has to
Right,
be
so they have
on
to be
agenda
heard.
within 21
But,
days of the day they have to drop it off.
But is there any value to, and we'll just take September, right? So September, we have a meeting on the 4th and the 18th, right? If we have a application that's been submitted, right, now, 21 days, can we put that on the 28th? We can put that on the 28th, that's 18th's agenda, right? We don't necessarily have to put it on the 7th. So is there any value of taking an incomplete application and pushing it out to the farthest hearing possible, and then working with the applicant to try to collect that information?
If they agreed to it.
If they agree.
If they agreed to it.
If they agree to it, yeah.
Okay,
It
so
has to be within 21 days, and they have to agree with it. if
So
it's
we
not.
have no ability to say, this is how we're gonna calendar the hearings within the 21 days.
Yeah, it's their
Technically, it should
their
be the next
discretion.
hearing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I will say, it would be
That kinda
the next hearing. It's all statute, state law, unfortunately. So that's just the state law. That's just
Okay.
how it works, so.
Thanks.
All right, so we good on that topic? We all agree?
I will say one thing on this, just to sum it up. The last thing, from my experience, that any applicant or representation wants is to not have everything in, because they really do want to have, they want to have a positive outcome for them, but they want to be able to come here and discuss with you the project.
Yes.
So the last thing they want is to have they're coming into a discussion knowing they didn't submit everything. So they really do want that. So if it's on a list, I think they will strive to have that material supplied, so.
Okay.
I hope.
Great, thanks. Okay, next item, subcommittee assignments. So we have the CPA committee, bylaw review,
CPC,
the tribe, and the CP what?
CPC.
CPC, I guess the CPA, yeah.
Yeah, it's not tax time yet. Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Oh, it says CPA.
I'm just reading right along. And was there a fourth one, or just those three? I'm trying to remember.
That's all
CPC, bylaw,
Yeah, there's,
and tribe?
tribal?
oversight.
And EOC.
EOC.
Okay. Knew there was one more. I thought there was four. All right, so right now, we'll start with the bylaw. It's Paul, Sandy, Drew, and Dan on it. So do you guys still want to, you four want to stay on that bylaw subcommittee, or? Good?
I mean,
Okay.
before we before we review the staffing there, I do just want to ask how it came to be that we had Dan take the open seat for commissioners. My understanding that if we have commissioners that are available and willing to serve on a subcommittee of commissioners, it's appropriate to have commissioners in those seats, as we're the policymakers and the staff are the liaisons to that process. And I know that, Steve, you and I both expressed interest when Alex stepped down, but I don't think we ever approved Dan moving into that seat. So I'm just curious when that happened. I was surprised to read that as the current roster for the subcommittee.
I didn't know, I wasn't involved in that, so I don't know when any
I
of
can
that
shed
decision
some
was
light
made.
on that.
Okay, Paul can answer that.
I actually had a conversation today with town manager about this topic. If you go back and look at the minutes of the February 27th, 2025 meeting, those minutes, and I think I have a copy of that here, hold on. Those minutes say there is one open position on the subcommittee. Both Mr. Cook and Ms. Thornbow have expressed interest in filling this position. The subcommittee can have up to 3 members, eliminating the need for public notice and allowing for more efficient policy drafting. Additionally, a suggestion was made to include Mr. Kent, Assistant Conservation Agent, as a 4th member to balance staff and commissioner representation. The chair plans to revisit this topic and may fill the position in the next meeting. As you know, we then went into March and April and May, and we were into a long and tedious evaluation of Regulation 25 because we were working to get that to promulgation. So I never, as chair, came back to this topic. But on the 27th, there was no vote taken to appoint Dan to the subcommittee. In further conversations that I had with the town manager, he brought up the subject of town hall staff does not create policy. So any town hall staff that sits on a subcommittee of any regulatory or any committee or board is in terms an ex officio member, a non-voting member. So in reality, we only have 2 conservation commissioners on the bylaw review subcommittee that have the power to agree, to vote, to bring a change in those regulations back to the full committee, full commission, for their approval or their rejection. My feeling on this, you know, I love having Dan there. Dan's an extremely smart guy, but I firmly believe that we should take full advantage of the town charter and place 3 conservation commissioners onto the regulatory review subcommittee so that, first of all, we have as many commissioners as we could possibly get in that room and not violate open meeting law. 3 minds are better than 2, because it's only the commissioners that can make the ultimate decision to bring a change in the regulatory language back to the full commission to see if they'll accept it and go down to the long and tedious road to promulgation, home rule authority. And having only 2 conservation commissioners, I like Sandy, we get along fairly well, but we might argue about something, and then
Well, you're deadlocked.
we're deadlocked. And so you got the other 2, Dan and Drew, they're smart guys, but there's no power that sits on that side of that subcommittee that can break any kind of a deadlock between Sandy and me. So my suggestion, I'm no longer the chair, but my suggestion is that we take all of that information, and you could, Steve, as chair, you could go back to town manager and review this whole concept, but I had a fairly lengthy conversation with him today, and that was his advice to me, to let the commission know that it would behoove us to have 3 conservation commissioners so that there is no tie vote or tie agreement, I don't know if we officially vote. I guess sometimes we did. Drew, is that correct? Sometimes we did vote to bring things forward to the commission.
I don't recall any actual formal voting. It's
Just
really
agreed.
just a consensus of bringing forward what we recommend as a group,
Yeah.
group consensus. I would also like the opportunity to speak with town manager on his feedback, because this is set up as an informal advisory committee, advisory to the commission. So I would like to have the opportunity to speak to town manager about what you had said, he said, Paul.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yep.
Yep, that makes sense, Drew.
Steve, I would motion to table further discussion on the bylaw review subcommittee part of this agenda item until both you and Drew can go back and verify what I've just mentioned from town manager.
Okay. Drew, if you've set up a meeting with the manager, just let me know so I can attend with you and
Yeah.
go through with it.
I'll get in touch with him, find out when he's available, and then I'll reach out to you, and we'll finalize a date and time.
Okay, that sounds good. And one question I had, does the membership, does it have to be a full-time member or can it be an associate member?
It's very informal. It can be
Could be
either.
either, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
It's whoever, volunteers to serve on it, but it was set up as a 4-member committee.
Okay. All right. Just for talking purposes, are any commissioners interested in joining that committee if it ends up going, as the town manager mentions, 3 commissioners and 1 staff member? Anybody?
I'm still interested.
You're still interested?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
So we'll just note that. All right. Okay, then, thank you, Paul.
So I made a motion with no second.
Do we need to make a motion on, we got to vote on that?
We should just table this for now until you guys can.
Yeah, I would definitely make it official,
Make a motion.
just,
Okay.
just to be safe.
Okay. Sounds
I
good,
just made a
so.
motion to table it.
Second.
Okay, Sarah, second, okay. All right, so we had a motion made and a second to table the discussion on the bylaw subcommittee. So with a roll call vote, Sarah?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes, too. Okay, great. Next one is the CPC committee. And is that you, Sandy? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to resign from that. It's just too much with our regular work plus bylaw, plus some stuff I have going on at home. So,
Okay. All right. Any commissioners interested in being on the CPC committee?
Sandy talked to me about that, and I would be happy to take on that.
Okay. Okay, do we need to vote on that?
I'm not too sure, but I'm going to say do that just to be safe.
safe.
Simply because I don't know if they have to be confirmed by the select board, I don't think.
No.
no.
Okay, so yeah, just do a vote just to be safe. But
Okay.
I don't, yeah.
All right, so do we have a motion to have Sandy step down from the CPC committee and Shauna take her place?
I'll move that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion made second, roll call vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And Sandy's yes? Okay, I didn't know whether you could vote. and
I know.
I vote yes, too. Okay, great, thanks. Next one is the EOC, Environmental Oversight Committee, and that's Paul.
Yes.
You want to stay on that, Paul?
I'm more than comfortable staying. Yep.
Okay.
That's okay with you? You're the
Yeah.
chair.
Somebody just give me a rundown on what that committee does.
Environmental oversight is an advisory committee only directly to the select board. There's no regulatory authority that goes with it. The committee, since I've been on there, has been working on its strategic plans, its, what's the word I'm looking for? Its purview of looking at different things around the town and talking about who would represent the EOC to go to the select board. the chair of the EOC right now is a select board member, so if the EOC was to go before the board, in all likelihood, it would be the vice chair or some other member that would be speaking to the entire board. The EOC has also been granted from the CPC a fairly large assignment of money, a grant, to work on putting together the new open space plan, open space and recreation plan. We have had several meetings with different people in regards to open space planning, and that new plan is in the infancy. It's starting to come together. We have all looked at the open space planning workbook that's issued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we're trying to incorporate things into the plan that were part of the old plan, and actually taking a look towards the future and incorporating other ideas into that plan that weren't in the old plan. So between all of that, it's been a slow process. We've had some difficulty in getting a quorum at times. We had one member that was an official member, but then their position was changed in town hall, and it didn't align with the original intent of the EOC, so they were no longer a voting member, so we were down a member. That's been changed by the select board, and the select board has actually increased the membership of the EOC by another position. So there should be, when all the dust settles, 9 people on the EOC. And what they're looking for now is a member that is part of the Freshwater Ponds Committee or somebody that's got some freshwater ponds expertise.
So this is a town committee, and you're representing the Conservation
I'm
Committee?
the
on-
liaison from
Okay.
Concom, right. So I represent you guys for
Okay, yep,
anything that you would like to transmit directly to them, or if there's things that come up in that committee meeting, I bring back and talk to you about.
Okay, great.
And they meet once a month at 5 o'clock, and I know the next schedule is overlapped with Concom a lot, so I'll be starting at 5 and ending at midnight or whatever. But I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I just have a procedural for Shauna. Do you let CPC know,
Yeah, I'll inform
okay.
CPC.
just so they can change her
I'll inform
email?
CPC, and I'll just shoot TM's
Okay.
office as well, just so they all know.
Okay. Next one is the Tribe and the Conservation Commission Committee. I'm trying to think, you're coordinating that, Dan? And I don't know who else is on it.
It was
That-
Sarah, me.
Paul and Shauna
and-
and I.
Yeah.
But is this
I
one,
was gonna say, at this time, I
I think we
don't
should
think we need a
table this
decision on this
one
at all
because-
right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd hold on that until the tribe reaches out to, because
That's what I've been doing. They went static so far, so I'm just,
Okay.
yeah, I wouldn't recommend anything until we have responses.
Okay, at least it's noted there that that's
Yes.
one of the things, okay. Just to let everybody know, one of the things that I've been asked to help out with is the town planner doing a raise and replace, going through the bylaw on that end of it. So I was asked by,
Brian Tobin?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm helping them out, and we meet once a month and just try to figure out what's the best way to handle raise and replace, so, again, giving us, the Conservation Commission input on that
Okay.
end of it. So, and with my experience with zoning laws and all that bit, so, trying to, they're saying it's kind of open for interpretation, what's more detrimental to the neighborhoods and things like that, so they're trying to tighten up that whole raise and replace bylaw to
Interesting.
improve on it, so. This is
I've been
good.
working on that for a while.
Yeah, we just started,
Yeah.
that up, so I was asked by one of the select board members to help out with that, so. Yeah, so that's,
Steve, do you know who's on that, the other members of that committee that?
yeah, it's Brian, it's Karen Faulkner from Planning Board. There's, I know the building commissioner was in with us. And then the 2 guys from PBA, Glenn McCarthy and Bob Orsi, they were in on it. So that's the group, and everybody's throwing in their input at this moment, but just starting out. So.
Yeah.
But I figured get everybody heads up, let you know what's going on that end of it, so. So if anybody has any input, questions they want me to throw out at the next meeting, just let me know.
Is that something you want me to add to, as like a rolling agenda item, just to update, or just whenever you call it out?
I think just want to call it, because it's just fact-finding.
By
There's
chance.
nothing really said. It's kind of loosey-goosey right now with a whole bunch of open items and questions,
Are
so.
those open meetings, you guys meet here, or when do you generally meet?
Once a month down in Brian Tobin's office, down next to the conservation office, so. But if you have any input, anybody has any input, just let me know, so. All right, next item is Regulation 25. I just threw it in there in case that anybody has questions on Regulation 25 or anything that is
Lord, no.
bothering anybody, or you want to change something or do anything differently.
Let's go back to something and change this.
I just put it in there just for discussion, so. If there's no issues, we can just keep moving on from there, so.
Nope, we have applications actively coming in with current Reg 25, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, we're.
All right.
All set.
Yeah,
No questions.
run it through. Shauna, you had mentioned at the last meeting about,
Septics.
Septics.
To 2 on the septic.
Right.
Because I think,
the only thing in Regulation 25, the new one, Performance Standard Number 5, looks directly at septic systems. These are brand-new systems. They're not a replace or failed or, taking one out to go to IA. It's a new system. And the performance standard is word for word identical to that of the town of Tisbury.
so in that case, Paul, it would be new construction only.
Like an
right?
undeveloped lot.
An
yeah.
undeveloped lot going in, so all the raise and replace don't necessarily go to that standard.
No, because they already have a
Okay.
system there. Yeah. So they would not come under that particular performance standard. All the other ones are what they are. I haven't stopped looking at relevant information for sea level rise, and I think it would be really good for everyone on the commission to look at that online training for the Morris Data Viewer. There's 2 levels. Level 1 is fairly straightforward. I know Drew and I talked about that video. And then you get to level 2, and wow, does it get deep. But level 2 is a very technical use of the viewer for all the purposes that we would have looking at the effects of what's being proposed for a raise and replace, say, or something like that. I think you can pretty much use the level 1 information from the viewer. But I just recently looked at an article, and I can send these articles out to the commission if you'd like to see them. There's a study that just came out from Tulane University, and they've looked at all of the sea level rise models from 1990 up to today. And you're looking at 35 years worth of data. And the predictions back in 1990, according to this article, were spot on. And if anything, they're rising quicker than what the models are showing. So when you start seeing all the information that's out there, and then you start using the Morris Data Viewer for the town of Mashpee, it's a very eye-opening experience. You look at 2030 or 2050 is the baseline for the Cape Cod Commission. If you pull up Secaucet Island or Monomoskoye Island for 2050, they're barely there. And I see an article like this that says these predictions are spot on. That's kind of an eye-opener. And if we're conditioning a brand-new home in 2025, I assume that house is going to be there in 25 years.
Yeah.
Typically they are. Some of them are going to be underwater. So that, that's an eye-opener. It's not speculation, it's probability. It's scientific data that comes not only from NASA, but from NOAA. And I know both of these organizations have been severely cut back by the current administration. Why, I don't know. They just aren't supplying that data any longer. That's their prerogative. But the thing that I find interesting is every other country, scientists are going full speed ahead, and they're analyzing the data. So you won't be able to look to FEMA or NOAA or NASA because all their funding is being cut. But you can look at every other scientist on the face of the earth, and they're all saying the same thing. So, eventually, politics will change in our country, and hopefully we get more funding for this type of what I think is very important work. But I'll send out those links if you'd like to take a look at the tutorials for the Morris Data Viewer. And I'll send you some of these other articles that I've been following. They're quite informative.
Okay, great,
And
thanks.
quite scary, actually.
Okay, next item, Regulation 30, impaired water bodies. Any changes that we want to pass on to the bylaw subcommittee, or any questions on that for anything on that end of it? So-
I'll comment on it for just a second. As you all know, we require under Regulation 30 nitrogen calculations, and we're actually using the nitrogen calculation format from the Cape Cod Commission. So I have spent a little bit of time looking at what the Cape Cod Commission offers in terms of that calculation sheet. And it really goes back to their Water Technical Bulletin of 2019. If you go onto the Cape Cod site, I could send you this as well, save a little bit of time looking around. It's kind of ironic that the target concentration for nitrogen loading values back in 2019 from the Cape Cod Commission was 5 parts per million. I don't think we've had a project other than those that go through like New Seabury's wastewater or Willow Bend's or Mashpee Commons. All of the IA systems, they all are starting to come in. Most of them are in at 11, 12, 13, 18. We have 19 set for a limit. I feel as though 19 is totally insufficient for the kind of water quality that we're dealing with. But we also have Regulation 30C, which allows this commission to look at any area of water that's impaired. Quite honestly, it's the entire town. And we, as a commission, can determine on a case-by-case basis, do we want to use 19 as the limit, or do we want to go all the way down to what the Cape Cod Commission is saying is 5, or as high as 18? So we've never really had any deliberations on a case-by-case basis as to, this project came in at, 17 parts per million, and it does meet the 19 cutoff. But what if that project is fairly close to an impaired water body source? We have Regulation 30C, and that allows us as a commission to say, you know what? We're not happy with that. We would like to see X amount of more nitrogen being taken out, which, we haven't made that call, but it's there. And you don't have to do anything at Regulation 30. And I also spend a lot of time looking, and you guys know this, I've been asking almost every engineer that comes to explain exactly what the loads are coming out of the tank as opposed to the roof and the parking lot and everything else. And, we are using the Cape Cod's recommendation, and that recommendation is to assume that there's only 2.5 people living in a house. So whenever these calculations come in, if it's a 3-bedroom home, that's a legally permitted 6-person house, not a 2.5-person house. So right away, those numbers are mitigated way down, even though that tank may be belching out, I don't know, 110 gallons per minute, or per day. So whatever that would come out to for the 3 bedrooms, that'd be 330.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a discrepancy right there. We, according to the Cape Cod Commission, receive 19 inches of rain per year.
Not this year.
and not this year, not last year. So a lot of what's happening with the assumptions that were made in 2019, which is the calculation sheet that, bless you, that's the calculation sheet that we're currently using. Those assumptions based on what was given to us by the Cape Cod Commission back then, they're no longer true because climate change is affecting the way nitrogen is mitigated from the lack of rainfall that we're getting. So at some point, we're going to have to go back to 30 and seriously question, how do we want to address the 19 parts per million? Personally, as one member of that subcommittee, I think it's too high. We had a lot of discussion about it, and we just went, I believe, and Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we went with the state's recommendation of 19. Is that right? That's right, I think.
Yeah, I think it was in consultation with the health agents and state standards that we arrived at that threshold. And I agree, I mean, we should do all we can to try and lower nitrogen loading as much as feasible. And I do have a question, just my own curiosity, and I don't know if anyone has an answer for it, but you know, is there when it comes to septic system technology that's currently approved by the state, is there a way to achieve, for example, 5 parts per million? I don't know the answer to that question. I know there are other measures the commission can, you know, instill, you know, such as reduction of lawn or xeriscaping, so you have no lawn, so there's no opportunity to use fertilizer, you know, capturing other sources of nitrogen such as stormwater runoff, you know, from hardscape areas and rooftops. But I'm just curious if, you know, realistically speaking, a 5 parts per million threshold can actually be achieved given the approved technologies out there for septic systems.
Right. The new technology for the Amphidrome system, the one that they're talking about for this cluster development, that's right down there. But I don't know if they make a system for an individual home or not.
Yeah. So I think that maybe, and we can certainly discuss this more in bylaw review subcommittee, but you know, trying to figure out what would be sufficient language to, you know, require any and all measures to get the parts per million threshold down to an absolute minimum, as low as is feasible. But if you set a benchmark, let's say it's 5 parts per million, and you don't have the technology available right now to achieve that, you know, that might be a bit of a slippery slope. But so it's something certainly that requires more discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. When we get the nitrogen calculation sheet, that's giving us, the final calculation is for everything. You know,
Entire lot.
Yeah, the coming off the roof and everything. Is there a way to just have them give us, just separate out what the new septic is going to be doing?
I do that on my own for everyone that comes in anyways, but you can pretty much, I mean, it's a quick calculation because you can see it for the actual flow from the tank.
Right.
Then they have it for the flow for the, you know, 2.5 people.
Right.
And that's a much lower
Yeah.
figure, obviously. But if you take the actual flow and you look at how many liters are coming out and what the nitrogen amount is, you can figure it out fairly quick. Most of these, the sledgehammer ones that come through, they're around 35 parts per million. They're not much better than a
No.
standard septic tank, but all it is a standard Title V tank, and they just put the filter in. And those filters, if they're not changed, and I asked the engineer at the last hearing, they're not changed every 6 months, they're garbage, they don't work. And I really don't know who's watching the store, because they have to sign a contract that it's going to be done, but who checks? You know, I recently had a neighbor of mine that bought a home, and the alarms are going off for their system, and they had no idea what to do. So somebody said, oh, get a hold of this guy, he lives right over there. They were asking me, and I said, you better go up to the Board of Health if you have alarm systems going off. But nobody told this person when they bought the house that it was an IA system. They had no idea. And so are these things working 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road? Who knows? I don't know the official process.
Now, if we're switching over to notice of intent filings with conditions, saying the same thing when we do mitigation plantings, we have a 3-year contract, should we be doing the same thing?
Well, they have to, before, don't they have to have a signed agreement before the
Right.
Board of Health.
But are they, is Board of Health?
Yeah.
Do they have that same agreement with the
But
Board
what
of Health?
Paul's saying
They have
is,
agreements, yeah.
when it transfers hands, the house, who, is this neighbor didn't even know he needed a maintenance thing, so
That
that's
that-
not our purview, we don't have
Kind
to
of
worry
like-
about
couldn't
that,
even
but.
tell
Certificate of compliance or an order
Right.
of conditions when it transfers, who's telling the new owner that, these things are in
Whole panels, the same
perpetuity?
issue.
Yeah.
Things fall through the cracks,
Yeah, I know with our mitigation contracts, they're locked in for the 3 years, so even if the house sells, the
Right.
landscaper or
It's-
whoever,
yeah.
still, they still go, Whether the new homeowner knows or not, I could not tell you. They know once he shows up, that's for certain. But, other than that, yeah, I'm not too sure how the Board of Health operates. I do know they have some sort of validation to ensure these systems are being looked at. As to if they're being informed upon sale, I couldn't tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly ask the Board of Health what the protocols are there. It's a good question.
because it's.
But, and also, these systems, these IA systems, they require, consistent use to be effective. So, to create that aerobic environment where bacteria can, reduce the amount of nitrogen, you have to have consistent use for that treatment to be effective. Or UV light, whatever, there's different technologies involved in various IA systems that have been approved. There's, air blowers that create an aerobic environment to increase the bacteria and uptake of nitrogen before it gets absorbed into the groundwater. And there's also ultraviolet light treatment, which kills off a lot of the effluent, a lot of the nitrogen and phosphorus. There aren't many systems that actually deal with phosphorus. It's mostly nitrogen that these systems are designed to reduce. But yeah, certainly a lot of questions as to the long-term effectiveness.
Okay, yeah, that'd be
So
good.
with the bylaw subcommittee right now, we finished chapter 25 and did that. Is there anything else that is there an active look at another section of the regulation right now?
Yeah, Regulation 3, 2 and 3 actually, submittal requirements and
Yeah.
information on plans.
And
Those are the
31,
next two that
And
were.
30.
31, too,
31, yeah.
right?
And 31, yes, yeah.
We got a lot of them.
There's a lot, I mean, they all need to be looked at, we're
All
just,
regs, yeah.
trying to prioritize based on the most recent concerns of the commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any way of, is there any like nitrogen fixing ground cover that we can recommend instead of the grass mixes or the,
Clover.
Clover.
Clover, legumes.
Clover fixes
yeah.
nitrogen.
does that factor into the nitrogen calculations? Like if they propose that instead of lawn?
That does not factor in, but I'm a gardener and a farmer, and
Yeah, same.
once those plants die back, the nitrogen stays right there.
Yeah,
So, I'm sorry, nitrogen doesn't stay right in the soil, it's gonna travel pretty freely. So you are gonna have an uptake of nitrogen, and then once those plants die back, if they're not maintained especially, you're gonna have you're gonna have nitrogen right on the property with that, so I'm not too sure. The plants would have to be,
to rotate those around, right? I mean, that's,
but these are homeowners. I don't, I
Gardeners,
rotate
yeah.
crops, especially some chickens, but I don't see your homeowner doing that with their micro clover lawn. I just don't see that,
It
yeah.
has to be overseeded every 3 years.
It would have to be
Yeah,
overseen
it has to
constantly,
be-
yeah.
Yeah, because clover
Yeah.
doesn't sustain itself
Yeah.
like turf grass does, it has to be reestablished occasionally, so it's not a consistent year-round, source of nitrogen fixation.
So the maintenance level on the tanks and on the septics, I think are a more pressing question than
more realistic than,
the
Vegetation.
lawns itself, yeah.
yeah. And what about other systems in septics? What about composting toilets? We do have a
So I have looked
standard.
into those. When it comes into that, it classifies under, I think it comes under like a tight tank. And those are not allowed, within the watershed, basically. So it was from what I've seen so far.
That's
or
the Board of Health.
What I've looked into. That's Board of Health, yeah, and that's not the local Board of Health, the state. The state does not permit tight tanks in this, not around the board. I think there are some exceptions, but for residential use, it's not an
There
exception.
are. I've seen a policy paper on gray water systems and composting toilets in Massachusetts for residences, and they have them. Like, they have them up in Wellfleet at the Mass Audubon Visitor Center, like,
They have them in public.
Oh, I've seen,
But I mean, there's a center. Where's the?
I've seen a 600-person building a day 600 kids a day with composting toilets, geothermal heat. The building's fairly massive. It's a library up in Leominster. The whole property is facilitated through solar, geothermal heat, and composting toilets. They have quite the system. So yes, absolutely feasible. But when it comes to the legalities within a green watershed, I haven't seen anything for residential yet. Yeah.
I think one of the other issues too with the composting toilet is that if you mandate that or, encourage it, you want to make sure that there are services
Sure.
available, sufficient services available to accommodate,
Yeah.
the maintenance needs of a composting gray water system. And I know that those services don't meet the level of services for septic cleanouts and septic maintenance, so that's something to consider. If you want to encourage those types of systems, you need to have a sufficient maintenance force available, if it's going to become a high number.
Also disposal.
Disposal, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's,
Sure.
yeah, it turns into humanure.
Yeah, it's hard to know,
Called
like, if you-
humanure. That's what it's called. It is.
if it's an alternative that would get that nitrogen down. Perhaps if this is a trend that our community and other communities lean towards, maybe the maintenance infrastructure will appear.
It's tough, right, because to make it has to be commercially available.
Sure.
It can't be, IHJ system costs you $1,000, and composting costs you $10,000. We'll get into,
Sure.
we'll get into brouhaha with the populace and stuff.
All right, we all set with that?
It might be a little early, but I would suggest for the next quarterly meeting or one coming up that we invite Brian Horsley to come in from MassTech and present some of the new current information that is coming out of that organization. I was just at the Citizens for Protection of Ocoyet Bay about 3 weeks ago, and Brian was there and had an eye-opening presentation on some of the stuff that they're doing. They were talking about the new pilot program coming out in Falmouth for urine diversion. There's a lot happening, but it's not happening quick enough. That's the issue.
So,
I mean, if we could get urine diversion, we'd be all set. I mean, these nitrogen figures wouldn't even be worth talking about anymore. 85% of your nitrogen comes out of the urine. So if you can take that out of the waste stream, you're home free. But the state's dragging their heels. But Brian's got some good stuff. He'd be a good person to,
And what was his last name?
Horsley.
Horsley, okay.
There was a presentation on that at the Save Mashpee Wakeby Pond Alliance annual meeting a couple years ago,
Yep.
as well, the
He's
urine
been up
diversion
there.
systems. Yeah.
Brian's
Okay.
doing some great things up there.
all right, sounds good, Paul. All right, moving on, next item, commissioner status. So Marjorie has let us know that she, due to her health and other reasons, she's going to go from a full-time to associate member. So and then Alex mentioned the same thing, we're just waiting a letter from her. So since we'll have two full-time commissioners stepping back to associate, Sean and Neil, do you guys want to step up to full-time?
I'd be happy to.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, okay. So I think all you guys have to do is just write a letter to the select board, I believe. Is that true, Drew?
No.
They have to
No.
go through.
No, you would go, same process that Rich went through, so you'd be re-interviewed.
Yeah.
Recommendations from all of you, and then it goes to the select board.
Yeah, policy 001.
So
Okay.
I talked to the TM's office about this week. So this was put on the agenda for tonight, so there could be a discussion and have recommendations. And those recommendations will be sent up to TM, and then they will assess it from there, is how I was told. So,
Okay, so we need a vote.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what do
What?
we
Yeah.
need to do?
So are we interviewing them tonight?
No, this is going to be a recommendation, so that the select board's aware, and then they're going to then go for the whole process.
And just to confirm, currently there's one seat available.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, there is, because only Marjorie has sent her letter in.
Okay,
Yes.
So,
so,
Okay.
Do we, Alex, she's never here.
She has already informed us she is going to be submitting a letter
Okay.
and presenting it to the select board as well.
But it's on her time if and when she resigns.
Yeah, I can't say for certain right now, so right now it is just
Right now
one
it's
seat.
one.
Just
Yeah.
one seat, yes.
Thanks, Sarah.
So,
But isn't there a, when I went to, as an associate member, Drew talked about a requirement to show up at X percentage of the
75%.
meetings, 75% of the meetings.
for
Yeah.
full-time.
I don't know if it's enforced.
That's enforced per commission discussions, basically.
What,
That's not enforced through the agents, that's enforced through commission discussions. So if it's brought up
Okay.
by the commission, they want to have it put on an agenda, things of that nature, absolutely. So, yes.
Yeah, it was part of the commission policies that were established a long time ago, probably when the commission was first established about, attendance thresholds. But yeah, it's up to your, discretion as far as if you feel the commission has missed too many meetings that without, and it's usually meetings without, a reason provided. And Alex has always provided, an explanation why she has to miss a certain meeting, so, but those are, discussion items for the commission to consider.
Okay. All right, so since we have one opening, which one of you would
Rock,
like
paper,
to
scissors?
move forward?
Defer to Shauna.
sure?
Okay,
You want to just,
You want to arm wrestle for today?
from across the table, so.
okay.
Yeah, so the way that works, just so everyone's aware, is it goes seniority on that, but since you're having a simple discussion now, that qualifies as well, so. yeah.
Okay, so we just need a motion to refer Shauna to the select board for,
That your recommendation is for Marjorie to step down as associate and for Shauna to take her place as full-time.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's a recommendation to the select board.
That's going to be a recommendation to the select board, and that will start the whole process.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, do we have a motion for that recommendation for Marjorie to step down from full-time to associate and Shauna to move from associate to full-time?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, well, motion made and second. Roll call vote, Sarah? Paul?
Can I just ask a
Yeah.
clarifying question? This is to recommend, and then we go back to 001?
Yes, then we go back to 001. Oh, sorry, microphone. And then Shauna will come to the podium and do the whole.
Okay, I didn't
interview.
want to
Yeah.
bypass that step
Nope.
because I know that's got to
We want to make sure that happens, because then, at that point, there'll be the recommendations from each commissioner, which go to the select board for review.
Okay.
So is that 001 tonight or another?
Nope, that's another night.
Another night?
That's down the
Okay,
road. Yep.
okay,
So I vote yes.
okay.
Yes.
Rich and
Yes.
Sandy? Yeah, and I vote yes also, too. So,
Okay.
okay.
So I will send that up tomorrow.
I don't need to do anything.
Not yet.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
okay.
You're not in the hot seat yet.
Okay.
So,
Study up for your interview.
Yeah,
Study up for your interview.
Okay.
thanks, Paul. I'm still learning this chair.
I'm still learning.
Okay, next item, open space prospect, 82 Great Neck Road North. So I guess Sarah mentioned this to put on the agenda, so you know the person that is willing to sell that lot, is that?
I do not,
Okay.
but I do know of the lot. I know that it's got significant frontage on the Mashpee River. I know that, given current regulations, it would be very difficult to build something on that lot, and I think it would be a wonderful conversation point for us to see if there's an opportunity to acquire that property for conservation and/or to work with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe for an opportunity for, co-management or deferred ownership if it's a property that they would like to acquire. So.
So, guess the process is if the property owner is willing to sell to the town, they must apply for, to the Mashpee Community Preservation Act. And a letter, and then we provide like a letter of recommendation if
Does
we agree with this. So,
one have to precede the other? Like, could we recommend to the, is it the CPC? Could we recommend to the CPC that?
there would have to be a formal application made to the CPC outlining everything. yeah, outlining absolutely everything for acquisition.
Okay.
And that would encompass a whole property
And then it
profile.
comes to us to say, we think that's a great idea.
We support it, yeah.
Yeah, it would come to you as a recommendation.
Yeah, it would be just that you
Step that
certainly,
down.
you support,
What was that?
if the opportunity presented itself, if the owner was
Okay.
willing to sell the property, you would endorse, having it as conservation land.
So, and I
Right
can,
next to,
I can outline here real
It's right
quick.
next to Zachary's.
What you see, this squiggly line, is the Mashpee River.
Okay.
So that is, and this property right here is owned by this property right here is owned by Massachusetts, the Fish and Wildlife Service, I believe.
Okay.
And then this property is the one that is privately owned, that is for sale currently. I have discussed with people about prospects for this property, not for town, but they've reached out to me about questioning it. And it's very simple conversation. This is within riverfront. So it's not, everyone always asks, is this lot undevelopable? We don't determine that at all. All I can say is that this lot, under the jurisdiction of riverfront, is only allowed to have a 5,000 square foot disturbance of everything. Septic, gardens, house, garage, whatever they want on property. That's the max. So that is the limiting factor to this property when it comes to a residential build, that people have brought up to me as a concern. Not that it's concerning to me, it's regulation. So that's just information I have on the property.
What is the size, Dan, of the property?
I can pull up the PK card. 36.
Pretty good size.
0.83.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
0.83 of an acre. So
Does it
That's
say it right
probably
there?
about
Oh, yeah, it does.
38,000 square feet.
So it is a buildable lot.
So,
Technically, yeah.
Great, right?
from ZBA and all that, when it comes to the Wetlands Protection Act, they
Right.
could absolutely fit 5,000 square feet of disturbance on it.
Yeah,
That's
they
for
could.
certain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether someone would want that or not, it's different, that's a
Right.
personal decision. But when it comes to conservation, whoever would acquire this property, whether it be the town or whoever, this is a prime property for preservation, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Not, in my opinion, not for development, for preservation because of the closeness to the river, but as well because the Mashpee River is currently being worked on for restoration needs. And anything we can do to aid that purpose, I think, is paramount, so.
Is there a culvert nearby?
Yep, so this is literally the culvert right here going over. So that's, being assessed right now by wastewater as well. So this is a hot area in town, to say the least, for a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So that's the property there. It is for sale. The owner itself, I don't believe, according to the record, yeah, they don't live in state. But that would have to go for a CPC application. As to who would apply for that, I am not sure. I couldn't tell you if the commission can or cannot, I'm just not sure, so.
Oh, so there is a possibility where we would apply for that to acquire that property?
I don't know. I don't know if the commission's allowed to apply for CPC or if even, I don't know how that works, honestly. I don't know.
You can't apply for funding for a parcel to purchase unless the landowner is willing to sell it.
Well, that too, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we know it's for sale?
Oh, it's for
Oh, yeah.
sale.
There's a little teeny sign.
It's been
Yeah.
for sale for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months or so, yeah. Okay.
And is this something that needs, if the town were to buy it, or we were to buy it, it has to go in town meeting? Has
Oh,
to be voted on
100%. It would have to be a
right?
town meeting warrant article as well
Okay, yeah,
for
okay.
cost, for acquisition, for that, but also in the same article to approve CPC to use that money. So yeah, it would have to.
Mr. Chair, I think we do have public
Yeah.
comment for this.
Sure, come on up.
Hi, Lynn Barbie, 73 Surf Drive. I just wanted to comment as a member of the CPC, and having just gone through acquiring 475 Nathan Ellis, what we need is to have the owner of the property submit a project, a request to CPC to purchase as open space, as conservation land, whatever, to purchase this particular piece. Whoever owns it, who's on the deed. And then we have a form for that. So just fill out the form for CPC. We are actually having a meeting in September, taking on new projects for the May town meeting. So if the person who owns it, or the trust, or whoever, submits a project proposal for us, then we can take that. What's the status of the one right behind it, 90?
That is developed.
It is.
It's
developed.
just an odd-shaped lot, but there is a house right there. Yeah.
And is that on the sewer?
Not as of right now, but this area that is being looked at directly
Going
for
to
that.
be.
So, yes,
Okay. All right.
you know.
Right, so I'm happy to follow up with someone if you want to, if they want to talk to somebody from CPC, or just have them, we now have an email that's cpc@mashpma.gov, and that goes straight to our chair, Arden. So if somebody wants to just send it an email, and we can follow up with that.
Great.
Thank you so much for the
Because
clarifying
it's
question.
good to have a little bit of spare, maybe Article 97 space sometime if we need it.
Great, thank you.
Just for, what's 100, where, I'm having a hard time.
That used to be the old Zachary's.
Yeah,
Oh, I mean, town hall's right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay.
right there.
Okay, moving along. There's no other questions on that. Next item is Papaneset Dredge update. There was an article in the Mashpee Enterprise. So I spoke with Drew and Dan about this, and the original notice of intent filings for this dredge process were approved in 2017 and 2018. Predates everybody here. I think I was an associate member in 2018. So it's been extended over the years, and I think we extended it in 2024 as a commission.
Yeah, last year it received a 5-year extension because it's a.
Maybe,
dredge project.
Drew, you can give everybody an update since this is new to a lot of the members, so.
Sure. So this is a dredge project that is submitted by Woods Hole Group that's created the plan, submitted the notice of intent back in 2017-18. And they're referring to it as a comprehensive dredge permit. So it's an expanded dredge footprint. There's maintenance dredging, and then there's new dredging. So this is probably the largest in terms of cubic yards dredge footprint and cubic yards of dredge material that has been, granted a permit so far in Mashpee. And the idea behind this is because the channel, I'm sure everyone's aware that, logistically speaking, getting the county dredge in place with all the time of year restrictions, from Division of Marine Fisheries, Natural Heritage, that towns have a very small window to accommodate dredging in any given year. And then there's always the question of the availability of the county dredge and what shape it's in. These dredge operations and machinery break down quite a bit, and so sometimes maintenance is needed or outright replacement. All of that, factors into the window of opportunity to dredge. So one of the driving motivations behind this particular application was to increase the dredge footprint and create what's called a dredge basin. I don't know, Dan, if you want to provide a plan that shows that basin. And this is really in the interest of kind of capturing the natural sediment flow that would fill in the channel and require, more frequent dredging over time, because the channel does fill in pretty rapidly from one year to the next, so it requires annual dredging to keep it navigable. So this dredge kind of basin, if you will help to catch some of that natural sediment moving before it hits the channel. And the anticipation is that they won't have to dredge as often with this larger dredge footprint, if you will. The dredge also includes an element of beach nourishment. And while the order conditions refers to dredging and beach nourishment, the nourishment is also for the dunes on this end of the spit to build up the dunes as part of that beach nourishment scope. And I believe they even got a waiver from Marine Fisheries to have some of the dredge deposited below mean high water as well, just due to the enormous volume of material that's going to be excavated out. Natural Heritage and Division of Marine Fisheries did submit letters, both of them, having various conditions mostly centered around time of year restrictions. Mass Audubon also submitted a letter advocating for the beach nourishment aspect of this, particularly the dunes, because the dunes do get weathered away and eroded away from wave energy each year. And the dunes, if there's an element of dune reconstruction, that's very beneficial for shorebirds such as piping plover and least and roseate terns, which rely on the toe of the dunes for nesting habitat. So any project that increases the available habitat out on a barrier island like the Spit, Audubon is 100% in favor of it. So August 31st is the end of the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species time of year restriction, and that's for shorebirds. So they anticipate that the dredge should start sometime in early September, because I think they only have until from September to January, I believe, before the next time of year restriction kicks in, and that's for horseshoe crab season. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There is going to be a pre-construction, pre-activity on-site with Woods Hole Group and members of the applicants such as Safe Pompanesett Bay. That will all be, that is going to be scheduled. And we can certainly let the commissioners know when that is going to occur. And you're welcome to attend that. We just have to be wary if there's going to be more than 3 people. We can post it as a public meeting if it's going to be a quorum of people showing up. So that needs to be vetted out ahead of time. But that's basically it in a nutshell. And I'll be happy to answer any questions commissioners may have.
Okay. Thanks, Drew. Okay. Any questions from commissioners?
Drew, does
Sorry, Paul.
helping the dredge, does it help at all with getting water in and out of the bay?
But yeah, it increases the flushing ability through the channel. I don't know to what degree.
Okay. All right.
That's not.
He froze. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Is he still talking, or?
Could you guys hear me?
No.
I think we lost it towards the
We're
end.
ready to say about flushing, but you don't know to what degree, so,
Yeah, it's minimal.
yeah.
Minimal degree of flushing, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Paul?
Well, I had a question on, I'm assuming we're using both the orders of condition simultaneously, is that correct? Okay.
No, I don't believe there's dredging occurring in the creek, but I can get that clarified. That's 43-2928.
Right.
And this is 43-3040.
This plan up is the 2928, Drew, on the screen right now.
Oh, okay. I was referring to the 3040 plan, Dan.
Nope, I had those ones up when you were talking last.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, the 2928 is the channel side, on the bay side of the Spit.
Right.
So I don't know if this, from what I've received as correspondence so far for this particular activity, this is under 3040, the DEP file number for the comprehensive dredge permit. But it could also include the other one. I can find out for sure from Woods Hole Group, because they represent both projects.
Well, one of the questions I had on the 2030 order, if we look at the third page, which is page C of the special conditions, I think they're special conditions, maintenance and improving dredging with beach nourishment. They have the time of year window set, we have it set as September 15th for the shorebirds.
Is this, which one are you referring to, 2928 or 3040?
3040.
3040. Then it would not happen until after that. Or are you talking about, is that the beginning of the time of year or the end?
That's the end. It says
So it would
all
happen after that.
Yeah, it says all beach nourishment activity is restricted from April 1 to September 15th for each
Okay.
calendar year.
Yeah.
And that's also for staging equipment as well. You can't have anything on the beach.
Right. Yeah.
So I read in the paper where they're going to start like right after Labor Day, and I thought, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to be bringing
It
the
could
barge
also
in.
be they may have gotten a change of that time of year restriction from Natural Heritage. I can look into that. But oftentimes, I read a lot of articles in the paper covering Concom meetings, and there's been a lot of misinformation put into articles, so I'll certainly check into that.
Yeah. Well, we've got it in the conditions, so I think we
Yeah.
have to abide by that, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, that was my,
Okay,
Concern.
great, thanks.
and I noticed there are two different amounts of beach nourishment. The smaller one is for the Save the Bay group, but this is the town of Mashpee one. This is like 73,000 cubic yards.
The 30/40.
30, 40.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the other one is plus or minus 2,000 cubic yards, because that's just the creek
Right.
area, much smaller dredge footprint than the other.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, that's the
All
only
right.
question I have.
Any other questions on dredging, Bob?
So are we effectively just arresting any kind of natural geomorphological movements of this spit to make this continually navigable and comfortable to the beachfront?
Yeah, this is being done for
Yeah,
navigation
sure.
as well as for habitat. I will say that, but
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
changing
it's-
I mean,
it is manipulated, so.
yeah, it is manipulating the sediment flow because the channel keeps filling in. But it's also helping to increase the resilience of a barrier island where if it were fail from storm damage and break through, you would see such substantial flooding events in a major storm
Sure.
around all those properties that border Pompanesett Bay. So the resiliency of the spit, building up the dunes, building up the beach profile to increase its resilience to storm damage is of the utmost importance for habitat and human safety.
It breached Bob.
Oh, you ever look at this map?
Yeah.
That's not going to stop
This map is
a hurricane.
fascinating.
That's not
No.
gonna.
I mean, the spit's a lot, like, if you go back to
Spit used to
the.
always almost go to Kentuit, you see
Yeah,
that?
yeah, the
Yeah,
spit's
I
much
remember that
smaller.
when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It is, the spit is manipulated through time. It has been maintained, and quite honestly, it's still there because of human activity.
Because of,
Honestly. There's been multiple times through a long time that it's been breached, that sections of it have washed away and been put back, and
back.
things of that nature. There has been dredges before, so yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, going to updates. Drew and Dan, you guys just want to go through that quickly, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
The Red Brick Road culvert, I know I've said this a few times before in similar updates, but you should be seeing a notice of intent coming fairly soon. I think they've wrapped up, Worsley Wood Group will be the consultant bringing it before you. I think they've wrapped up everything they need to in order to submit the notice of intent for the replacement of that failed culvert at Red Brook. This is a pipe culvert that failed. It's associated with an old cranberry bog, long since abandoned. And the new culvert will be, I think, approximately 8 to 10 feet wide. It will help to increase the flow and tidal fluctuation of Red Brook itself. Most importantly, just as importantly, it'll help to reduce the repeated likelihood of flooding because Red Brick Road is at a very low elevation. And when you have a failed culvert, the likelihood of road flooding increases. So it's a safety issue, it's a habitat improvement issue, and hopefully you'll be seeing a notice of intent for that coming up soon. Does anyone have any questions on that particular project?
Yes.
Okay, we got one from the audience.
Comment?
We'll take one from the audience first, then
Hi,
the members.
As Drew knows, my name is Lynn Barbie, and I'm in a butter. I live in a community right along this. And I did go to the meeting, a number of our residents went to the meeting at Webner that talked about this. And I just had a couple of questions. What is the status of the Falmouth-owned piece of it? Because I gather it's still owned by Mr. Marsters. And I know some of the people who live there, and they said they don't really know what's going on. We do have an association, so we're trying to stay on top of it. And I heard someone say at that Webner meeting, and I don't remember now who it was, that there might have to be some taking of land by eminent domain. And I don't know if that's true, but if it's possible, I wonder if somebody could explain to me how that would happen. Because we do have people who live right along that whole area in our association.
So Lynn, are you referring to the restoration component of this, or the
Yes,
culvert
the
replacement?
restoration part of it. I know that's
Yeah,
down the
so-
road, but,
Yeah, so I don't want to get into a discussion of eminent domain because that really hasn't come to that place yet.
okay.
So I can't really speak to that. I can only tell you that, we're still, the town of Falmouth is still working, with the local residents to try and, secure, appraisals have been done, for all of those lands on either side.
Okay.
For the commission's edification, this area splits the town line between Falmouth and Mashpee. So that's what Lynn is referring to on the Falmouth side. There's lands that are associated with Red Brook, mostly wetlands, that as a follow-up to this culvert replacement, the next step ideally is to acquire these lands or establish an easement over these lands, which are currently association or privately owned, to restore all of the riparian habitat around Red Brook on Falmouth and Mashpee. It seems like the lands on the Mashpee side have, the associations are willing to, sell these parcels to the town. The Falmouth side is still kind of up in the air, so all that still has to be vetted out. This is a project that's still very much in the conceptual stage. There hasn't been any formal, conceptual designs to this point. We're trying to work with the landowners so we know if it's worth pursuing conceptual design. So this is the conversations that are happening now. It's all about land acquisition to see if we can take the next step for restoration. But I don't want to talk about eminent domain because it's really not on the table right now.
Okay, I just, because I heard it being mentioned, I thought, well, okay, how is that
Yeah.
going to work? And what is the timeline for more this stage? Because I see that we're moving forward with the culvert, which is wonderful. And for the sort of the restoration phase, we're talking like 2027, is that right?
Again, it's kind of hard to comment on a timeline. I would just say at the earliest possible feasible time. Once land ownership is secured, then we would move right into, conceptual design, planning, permitting, and construction.
Okay, and is there an issue if, like, for example, there's no agreement to sell the land?
I just don't want to cross that bridge until we come to it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Right, well, just because I know that the people on the Falmouth side have been, they've been very upset. And I have only talked to a couple of them, and they were at the meeting, so I think you know that, that they really spoke out because they said, I live on the edge of a pond, and I want to keep living on the edge of a pond, so.
Right. Well, we know that, as far as retaining a pond, that's just not going to happen. We can't reestablish, we can't reblock the water from an abandoned cranberry bog. That's just, the Wetlands Protection Act would not allow that.
Was there ever a pond there at all?
No, it's historically been, it's called Red Brook because it was historically a brook. And then it was dammed up as, an active cranberry bog for flooding and harvesting, and then it remained dammed up, and that's what never really should have happened, but it maintained in that condition for decades, and that's what the homeowners got used to, was the surface water body that was essentially a flooded bog. It never should have remained flooded. Those boards should have been pulled when those developments were created.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, I don't want to take up more of your
Okay,
time,
any
thanks.
other questions from commissioners on that? Okay. Thanks, Drew.
Sure.
Just keep going down the list.
Sure. Upper Quashnet, so we're working, Horsley Witten is currently working on 50% design level plans, and we'll have them come in for another update to the commission once those plans are completed. Thankfully, we have that NOAA funding that added, a couple $1 million onto this project, so that's a huge opportunity to expand some of the restoration scope when it comes to the Upper Quashnet restoration. And we got those funds in secured regardless of the current administration, so that's wonderful. Very fortunate. Jones Pond and Sancho Pond milfoil. So Jones Pond was spot treated back in June for some very small areas of milfoil resprout or reintroduction. And we're still awaiting a follow-up survey for that, and I'll pass that along to the commissioners once we receive it. Same true upon milfoil, we're getting ready to reach out to the consultant to perform some eradication of, well, full eradication of Eurasian variable leaf milfoil and fanwort, but it's not quite determined if the Eladia, which is native, is going to be treated at this time. There are some, concerns about the need to do that, and also the cost involved, because Eladia is probably the most widespread type of vegetation in the pond. So the scope and the cost of treating that, coupled with, not exactly a full endorsement for that from, pond residents, still remains to be seen, but we are going to move forward with the Eurasian milfoil and fanwort, which are 100% invasive. And if they're not addressed soon, they'll continue to spread and the cost will go up the longer we wait to do that. So that's in the works. Does anyone have any questions on that?
No?
Choptic Bog, I don't know if anyone's been out there recently, but all of the excavation has been completed. We're moving into the monitoring phase now, so it's interesting given how little rainfall we've had and the amount of surface water still present after excavation is still pretty significant, which is kind of interesting. It is starting to recede and you're starting to see more shallow wetland conditions take hold. It was unexpected that with our drought status, that the area is still holding, a pretty good amount of surface water, but it is starting to recede and you're starting to see those wetland conditions take hold. And there will be an ongoing 4-year, possibly longer, depending on funding, ongoing maintenance and monitoring program for the Choptic Bog restoration. Speaking of rain, we need it more than I can possibly emphasize. All 3 of our herring runs are really running on minimal flow, and we can't really pull any more boards because that's going to start impacting local water body water levels. So this is a typical thing that happens in the mid to late summer, and from my experience over the last several years, the drought period seems to be getting longer and more severe every year. So we did have marine fisheries, and Dan had also assisted in digging out the channel that leads to the Mill Pond fish ladder to try and keep that flow going because there are still juveniles coming out, juvenile herring. So we need to keep that flow going. If for any reason we can't keep flow going because the water tables are so low, what will happen is the herring will have to overwinter in the ponds and they will come out, once we get enough precipitation to establish flow. It's flow that attracts herring, juveniles, and adults to the fish ladder, exiting the pond and heading into the pond every spring. It's all predicated on sufficient flow. That's what they're attracted to, and that's what instinctually drives them for in-migration and out-migration. So pray for rain, because we really need it. Harbor Management Committee, the public comments on the final draft have been finalized. The end of the public comment period has come. And the next stage is to take the draft to the state level for review by Chapter 91 to get their input into the harbor management plan. And ultimately, it'll be presented to the town in its final form, but I don't have a timeline for that, but we're approaching that, that part of the process for promulgating a final version of the harbor management plan. Mashpee River restoration, still ongoing conceptual design with the consensus from the town. And I'm not sure where the tribe is at with this, but I think they were in favor of dam removal, which is what we're going to move forward with. So that basically involves, trying to recreate a naturalized stream channel to the greatest extent feasible. Obviously, that's not going to happen where it runs underneath Route 130, but that culvert, may have to be replaced or modified in some way. And you'll have some naturalized elements in that, but that's obviously going to be mostly structural. But all other areas of the channel, the stream channel, will be, restored to a natural channel to the greatest extent feasible. And we are still working on final plans, speaking of initial Lake Fishway, to be constructed next to the Santua Pond fish ladder to improve fish passage at Santua Ponds. I think that covers all the updates.
Great.
That's
Thanks,
all,
Drew.
huh?
Sure.
Yeah, quite a bit. I think then the last one is additional topics, and mention about, you want to talk about Gunter's Lane under additional topics?
Yeah, I think I would really like to just see it on a future agenda that's published so we can have public comment, but specifically I'd like to discuss what this commission has the agency to do in terms of influencing the outcome of this cluster treatment plant that's being proposed on what I understand is Concom land. No, it's not.
It's not Concom.
It was not.
Oh,
The town attorneys have vetted this out as
Okay.
far as title and deed research, and it is not deeded conservation land.
I can
Okay.
clarify that very quick.
Okay.
There was a 5-year plan drafted in, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Part of that 5-year plan was to have the select board parcel at Gunter's Lane turned over to Conscom. This was projected, this was part of the plan, to have it turned over to Conscom and have a conservation restriction put on it. It never was followed through with. It never happened. There was other items on the 5-year plan that were, such as acquiring Pickerel Cove, and including it in part of the National Wildlife Refuge and putting a CR on that, and other properties in town were followed through with for transferring to conservation. This one was not. So,
is there a way for us to get a CR on that property since it's already?
at this point right now, there's always an opportunity for it. We don't control the land. We don't. The Conservation Commission does not control the land. So that would have to be at the acquiesce of the select board for that.
Who already
For that request.
put the order together to transfer it to Concom. It just never happened, right?
The select board did not. The 5-year plan that was drafted by the town planner at the time
I see.
was recommending this to
Okay.
go through. I don't know what happened. Other properties in town were followed through with. Some properties were not. Gunter's Lane happens to be one of the properties that was not followed through with. So
Okay.
at this time, it is select board parcel. It does not have a conservation restriction on it from what has been found by town staff as well as legal counsel. So what they're doing with it at this point, I'm not too sure. I would imagine they might still be looking at it for the treatment plant, so.
Would it be something maybe for a future agenda item, we could get an update from the liaison from the select board for the Conservation Commission? Is that still Selectman Whedon?
Yes, it is Selectman Whedon. Yeah, we can see if we can get an update from Selectman Whedon, or if we can get an update from the sewer director itself.
Sure.
Something like that, but I can see what I can do. I just can't promise anything from the select board level.
Sure,
But I can definitely check into it.
Okay.
I will say, when it comes to going on an agenda, are you still looking to have it on an agenda? Or just
Let's
wait
not
until,
put it on the
wait till we
next
hear
one.
back?
Maybe not the next one. I
Yeah,
just,
I'd probably
I-
wait till we hear back from
Okay.
something, you know.
maybe more information. It'd be
Maybe
great
next
to
quarterly.
talk about what we can do, if anything, given
Our
the
regular
the public interest.
That's gonna be,
You know? The 18th, is that the?
I would aim for the 18th if it's going to go on anything. At the 4th, we are very busy with business that night for public hearings. And,
We also have executive session.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, correct. And we have an executive session that night, starts at 5 PM.
Know that.
So keep that in the back of your heads.
On the 18th?
Oh, no, on the 4th, next Thursday,
Yeah.
Thursday. So I will be sending everything out tomorrow. But yeah, so I would definitely aim at the earliest for September 18th.
I'd say let's,
Go to
I think
October.
that means gonna push it, let's push it off into October.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
October
by
9th.
that, and before, well before the end of this, not August, but September, I'll have an answer as to who can give an update to the commission as well, so.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
No one really knows how this whole process is going to work itself out. But I do know that when you look at that parcel, and I looked at every square inch of it, there are jurisdictional areas of that parcel for Conservation
Oh.
Commission.
Absolutely.
So, because there are areas of jurisdiction for this commission, I think it behooves this commission to not take one position or another, because if you do, all you're doing is prejudicing your vote. I don't think we can, as a commission, be in favor or against what is going on, because part of that land is jurisdictional. And if and when it does come to us as a project, if you've already voiced your opinions and views on that, you're really on thin ice as far as being able to make a impartial decision based on regulatory language.
That
Yeah,
would come to us
100%
as
agree.
Yes, 100%.
I think we should stay away from that as far as possible until it shows up as an NOI.
Yep. I should have
If it
prefaced that.
does.
There is a vernal pool, certified vernal pool
Yeah,
on the
there
property.
is.
So
And it's
there is.
150 feet, no touch.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And that would come before us as an NOI
have to.
before any,
If
Groundbreaking.
they are,
If it falls within jurisdiction, but it's not
Yeah.
known yet.
Yeah,
If-
we don't,
Okay.
haven't seen.
if it's not falling within jurisdiction and there is concern, at the least it would come as an RDA if it's out of the buffer zone, just to make sure there's no
Right.
adverse effects, there's no runoff, there, the whole 9 yards for that, so.
That's hilly over there.
and at
It's very
that point, theoretically, any community members or concerned
Oh, at that point, if they had to
residents could come and
file,
comment on the application.
if they had to file anything, they would have more than ample opportunity to comment,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
so we
very
don't
well.
have to worry, we won't worry
We'll
about
just,
that.
I'll just get back to you on this, and then we'll
Yeah.
go for an October date, it sounds like, or the
Well, it
18th,
sounds
so.
like even
Well-
if, maybe we just,
Yeah, just forget about it until it comes in front of us, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, Dan, we're
I
not
like that
gonna-
answer.
We're not gonna follow up on this, Dan.
Nope, I like that answer.
Yeah, no, good idea, Paul. Good idea, Paul, yeah.
Less work is always
thank you,
good.
Paul. That's
I'm not
helpful.
complaining.
Okay, all right. Any other additional topics?
Are we going to revisit the request from the bike people
From
to
NIMBA?
step, to step that NOI down to RDA?
Yeah, we can talk it through, I don't know.
We can, in lieu of time, I would recommend putting it on a discussion item for just commissioners for another night.
Okay.
If the commission wants to just at least discuss it. I'm not saying one way or another, so.
Yeah, since it's almost
Yeah.
9:15 now, so.
Yeah.
Steve, that would be your call as chair.
That
to
would be
set the
Steve's call.
agenda, so.
Yeah, we can talk it through, because I think what we asked of them, based on coastal bank and amount of trees to be removed, I thought it was pretty fair, but yeah, we can talk that through again, one more time.
I mean, no is, we could say, no, we're not gonna revisit it, I just,
No, if, he gave his request today, so we can, as a commission, I think, yeah, we should just talk it through one more time and go back to him and say, no, we're going to abide by his decision, or we can change it. I think, it's at least worth answering him. He came here to talk, so we can answer his questions.
I will, when we discuss agendas, we'll discuss that.
Okay.
For signing the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Paul. Okay, if no additional topics. Good meeting tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do a roll call vote with a motion second made. Sarah?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes, too.
COC, I forgot last time.
COC, okay.
All right, thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.